Ladies and gentlemen, Thursday night, 5 members of the law enforcement community in Dallas, Texas tragically lost their lives. Please join us in a moment of silence to recognize and honor those victims and their families. Thank you. At this time, we ask you to please rise and remove your hats as the Kentucky National Guard presents our nation's colors. Please remain standing as Larry Campbell of Kentucky Raceway Ministries offers our tonight's invocation.
Let's pray. Father, once again we come to you tonight, Lord, and we ask for your comfort upon the families of those who died there in Dallas. Father, we ask you might just wrap your loving arms around them and comfort them at this time. Father, we ask that you might just heal our nation. Lord, we just thank you for the freedoms that we have, but Lord, we ask your blessings upon America. Father, go with all the service personnel around the world fighting for our freedoms. And Lord, give us safety tonight on this beautiful night. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Here tonight to perform our national anthem, please welcome Kentucky native Elena Van Hoos.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streamed, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free, and the home of the
It's about time for the drivers to get into their office and go to work. When we come back, Blake Shelton and the command.
Everybody ready, set, go. Rev it up and let's roll. There's a party in the fast lane. Got my hands on the wheel and I'm flying. Heartbeat loud as the thunder rolls. Riding in on the stampede of lightning. I'm bringing back the sunshine. Bringing back the sunshine. Baby, it's about time. Oh, bring it back. Oh, yeah.
Getting ready for racing under the lights. Welcome to NASCAR Sprint Cup Series Racing, presented by KFC. Let's go to pit road and Mike Massaro.
Well, Rick, this has been a treacherous racetrack this weekend for sure. And to give you an idea of just how unforgiving it is, among those in a backup car today, well, 6-time champion Jimmy Johnson. Johnson says this car's not quite as good as the primary machine, but feels it's still quick enough to get the job done tonight. This is one of just 4 tracks where he hasn't won. He would love to check it off the list tonight. Marty Snyder.
Well, Mike, the garage area agrees with what Dale Jarrett said, that Kyle Larson might be the man to beat this afternoon. In fact, when I talked to Kyle moments ago, he said, yeah, if I'm being honest, this probably is the best car that we've had all year long. The big question is, he starts 20th. Can he get to the front? That's going to be the fun thing to watch. Kelly?
Brad Keselowski has 2 Kentucky wins in just 5 tries, but he said he could take those notes and put them through the shredder. None of it applies, but what he can take into this race, momentum from a win last week in Daytona, his 3rd of the year. He's now at the top of the chase standings and chasing down his best single-season wins record, 6 2 years ago. Dave Burns.
Kelly, there's a danger zone here in Kentucky, and it's turn 3. Kevin Harvick described it to me this way. Turns 1 and 2 is like a dry road. Turn 3, like black ice. If he can handle that challenge, he could be the winner here tonight. Let's get some heat in those motors here at Kentucky.
Race fans, it's time for those most famous words in motorsports. Here to give the command, please welcome tonight's Grand Marshal, President of Advance Auto Parts, George Sherman.
On behalf of Quaker State, Advance Auto Parts, and our 74,000 team members across North America, drivers, start your engines!
Hi, buddy. Fired up when you're ready. Fired up when you're ready. Greg, firing up when you're ready. Fired.
40 cars coming to life, each over 800 horsepower. Drivers have already struggled on this racetrack. What will they do with 40 cars on track? NASCAR on NBCSN is brought to you by KFC's Extra Crispy Chicken. It's extra crispy good. And by Sprint, proud sponsor of the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series.
I feel like I've had quite a few races that have taken me to the next step.
Keselowski's going to hang on. Keselowski wins at Daytona.
Every one of them was a breakthrough in their own right.
Thank you guys. Great team effort today. Very proud. Thank you.
We're racing in Kentucky.
Kentucky Speedway, it's a fun racetrack for sure.
Kyle Busch is going to win in Kentucky.
Welcome back to Kentucky Speedway as we get ready for 400 miles Sprint Cup Series racing. Tonight's starting grid is brought to you by KFC. The starting grid set by owner's points because qualifying was rained out. So up front, Kevin Harvick and Brad Keselowski. Kevin Harvick, this is the only track he does not have a top 5 finish in his career.
In row 2, we have Kurt Busch, who had to start in the back of the field because he had to go to a backup car, and Joey Logano, who won the last time the slow downforce package was used.
2 Joe Gibbs Racing teammates make up row 3. Carl Edwards fastest in 3 of the 4 practices this weekend, and Kyle Busch, a 2-time Kentucky winner.
Back in row 4, he has dominated. The last time we were on a 1.5-mile track, Martin Truex Jr. alongside Chase Elliott with his first Cup start here.
And Jimmy Johnson, who's never won at this racetrack, and Denny Hamlin, the 2016 Daytona 500 winner, row 5.
Matt Kenseth, the 2013 winner here at Kentucky, and Austin Dillon make up row 6.
Back in row 7, it's Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Ryan Newman. Dale Earnhardt Jr. wasn't happy with his car in practice, but had a fast lap late in the last practice.
In row 8, we have Ryan Blaney, who has 2 Xfinity wins, but his first race here in Cup, starting next to Jamie McMurray.
Row 9, we have Trevor Bayne coming off a 3rd place finish at Daytona, starting next to Casey Kane, who has 8 wins on 1.5-mile racetracks.
In row 10, starting 19th to 20th, AJ Allmendinger and Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson 3rd in final practice, so he does have speed, but starting a little bit further back in the field tonight because of the owner points. And we want to hear from Kyle Busch. We'll tune him up. And Jeff, see if we can talk with Kyle.
Hey, Kyle, it's Jeff up in the NBCSN booth. You with us?
Yeah, buddy, got you.
All right, bud, man, we've seen so many drivers have issues in practice this weekend. Tell us how difficult this race is going to be.
Well, this race is challenging because the biggest thing you got to deal with is all the grip you have until you don't have any. I mean, we talked about it. You can kind of slide these cars around a little bit more than the Xfinity cars because of the lower downforce and the feel that you kind of get, but you're pretty stuck in 1 and 2, and there's a lot of things that are happening for you down in 3 and 4. So balance is key and trying to keep the tires underneath you for the long haul.
How difficult is it going to be to manage tires, and do you think that's an issue tonight, or are you just going to be able to run hard the entire evening?
Well, I think you can run hard, but your relative hard is definitely different than what it is from last night. I say that because the Xfinity car, you know, you could run hard if you wanted to, but you're going to pay the price on blistering a tire. Tonight, you can run hard, but you're going to pay the price on overheating the tires and then sliding them across the surface. So I don't think we'll see tire problems tonight, but, you know, anything's possible.
Well, good luck managing all those issues. We'll be watching.
Yeah, we'll definitely do the best. So look forward to this M&M Camry up front all night.
I love the fact that just seconds before he's getting ready to go 200 miles an hour into turn 1, we're able to chat with him on board. We will ride along with a few different drivers. Carrying the Sprint onboard camera will be the 13 of Casey Mears. Casey starts 28th this evening. Greg Biffle has the KFC in-car camera. He will start 23rd. The 88 of Dale Earnhardt Jr. has the nationwide onboard camera starting in row 7. In row 3, the Toyota onboard with Kyle Busch behind the wheel. Joey Logano in the 22 has the Ford in-car camera, and he will start in row 2 in that 4th spot. And in the first row, starting on pole, will be the 4 of Kevin Harvick, the Busch Light onboard camera. I want to take a look at tonight's KFC track facts. Again, a repaved 1.5-mile racetrack. The banking in corners 1 and 2 is 17 degrees. The banking in corners 3 and 4 is 14 degrees. And the Front stretch just over 1,600 feet. The back stretch right at 1,600 feet. Take a look at our race analysis. This one is 400 miles, 267 laps, pit road speed 45 miles per hour. Will we see guys go 60 to 63 laps, which is the fuel window, Steve?
I expect to, especially towards the finish of this race. You know, early on, we're going to have a competition caution at lap 25. We heard Kyle Busch say they expect these tires to be very durable and last as long as they need them. So I think pit strategy is going to be very big, and part of that pit strategy is stretching the fuel when it's appropriate.
2 by 2 they go. Let's go back to pit road and Mike Massaro.
Well, Rick, you know, in the brief history of the Kentucky Speedway, there's only one driver not named Brad Keselowski or Kyle Busch who has won here. That would be Matt Kenseth. But with so many unknowns here this weekend, even he doesn't know what to expect. I asked him just before he was announced to the fans here tonight what he thought the race would be for him. He said he doesn't know if he's going to finish 6th or 26th. Still, the goal has to be to do what he did in 2013, go to victory lane. Marty?
Mike, we see Kurt Busch dropping to the back of the field. That's because late in happy hour yesterday, they wrecked their primary car. In fact, they wrecked so late that the team stayed until 11 p.m. last night, then came in the garage area 1 hour early this morning to get the backup car ready. They put in a ton of work to get it ready for this afternoon. But as Tony Gibson told me, we have history on this car. We ran it at Charlotte. We ran it at Kansas. We know its tendencies. It's fast, and it can get to the front. Kelly?
Chase Elliott is making his first Cup start here at Kentucky, and if you ask around the garage, he is definitely one to watch out for. His crew chief, Alan Gustafson, told me they do have a good balance in the car, but like everyone else, there are just too many uncertainties with this new track. One thing he is certain of, he would love to get the win here tonight. It would be a first in Kentucky for Hendrick Motorsports. Dave?
Joey Logano could have a leg up on the field. He won the most recent race where the rules were configured the way they are on these cars tonight. That was Michigan. And he did a tire test here at this track right after it was repaved. We'll see if that pays off for Logano, Rick.
And thanks, Dave. They are going to go around one more time because Jimmie Johnson, as he was riding around, he noticed that a bolt fell off the car in front of him. And so they wanted to make sure that that was not on the track. So track workers went over to take a look at it. They can't start here. There is a safety truck right in front of the field, even though the pace truck made its way onto pit road. The pace truck will catch them back up when they come back off of pit road. But again, they were making sure that that bolt that Jimmie Johnson thought he saw come off of another car. Our aerial coverage tonight provided by our partners at Smithfield Foods. They'll give us a great vantage point as the cars go into a very narrow turn number 1 on all of the starts, restarts, and obviously the runs through the tri-oval and into turn number 1. Things narrow up quite a bit as they get into 1 and 2. And the pace truck has picked the field up once again. The lights are off, indicating that this time live, they will get the green flag.
And listen, all these drivers right now, they're nervous. This will be the first time that they've driven these cars side by side on a restart, driving into turn 1. We've talked so much about how the track is treacherous. There's sunshine on the racetrack right now. There's going to be low grip. So there's a lot of anxiousness right now coming to the green flag.
Tony Stewart starting a little bit back in the field because of the point situation. Tony Stewart making his 600th start. This track and Darlington, only 2 tracks that he is winless at in the Sprint Cup Series. Only Richard Petty has been able to win on his 600th start. We'll see if Tony Stewart can add his name to that list. On all of the A posts of these cars tonight, they're showing the respect to the fallen police officers in Dallas. They have a decal on the A post as they go 2 by 2, getting ready to race in the Bluegrass State. Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski, we're underway. Last night during the Xfinity race, we noticed more and more drivers choosing the outside line on the restarts. Kevin Harvick, obviously watching that broadcast last night, saw that the outside line worked. He chose the outside line. And he will lead the first lap at the repaved Kentucky as Logano drops back a few spots.
Logano's dropping quickly. He got in 3 and 4, lost grip, and when he did, he lost so much momentum, a lot of cars got by him.
Yeah, you instantly saw the difference between the two ends of the racetrack. Although you see the 11 of Denny Hamlin high in 1 and 2, but he seems to make it work, carry the momentum. That high in 3 and 4 definitely didn't work for the 22.
I had mentioned earlier that Kevin Harvick had never had a top 5 finish. Well, he never led a lap at Kentucky before that lap right there. That's the first lap that Kevin Harvick has led at Kentucky.
Now, let's don't forget, again, we talk so much about the racetrack, but remember how much downforce is taken off of these race cars with this lower downforce package. That really affects the cars as they're around other cars and in traffic.
There will be a competition caution at lap 25, on or around lap 25, for the teams to be able to check out the tire wear. But this will be the first time that they will be on long runs this weekend.
I think this is a good example right here. You see the 19 of Edwards on the outside. If you don't find a way to get to the bottom, you may lose 3 or 4 spots. When you make one small mistake or somebody's a little bit quicker, you did a great job. You need to fill that hole behind you to keep the train from coming. It's kind of like Daytona Talladega pulling in the wrong line. That's how they're going to have to protect the bottom tonight.
And the other competitors know that. They know when they get you out of the preferred line in 1 and 2, or excuse me, in 3 and 4, they're going to try to continue to fill that gap, leave you up into the light gray.
You'll be able to see the speed of the leader up on the top of your screen. Right now, Kevin Harvick, when he enters turn number 1, he'll be upwards of almost 200 miles an hour. They're 199. 201 is what Kevin Harvick was going when he entered turn 1. Riding along with Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch running 9th. Joe Logano just behind him. Carl Edwards in front of him. Kyle Busch in the M&M's number 18. Carl Edwards just in front of him in the number 19 Toyota.
Listen to the throttle as we ride along with Kyle Busch. Both ends of these racetracks, like we talked about, are so different. As he goes through 1 and 2, he's approaching turn 1 right now. Look at the miles per hour on the bottom of the screen. He falls down to 167 miles per hour. He's back in the throttle, not out of the throttle very much at all. As he approaches turn 3, the flatter corner without as much grip, without as much banking, watch how far the miles per hour falls. All the way down into 155. So 10 mile an hour roughly difference between the center of corner speed in 1 and 2 versus 3 and 4. That's the difference in grip.
Able to lean on that banking in turns 1 and 2. That additional banking, 17 degrees, as opposed to in 3 and 4, it's just 14 degrees of banking. Crew chief, do you expect to see tire wear be a little bit different from what they saw in practice?
I don't think it's going to be a whole lot different than what we saw in practice. While there was some rain that washed the rubber off the track yesterday, last night we had the Xfinity race. They put the rubber down. And remember, this Sprint Cup car is on a much more durable right side tire than we saw in the Xfinity car, so I expect these tires to run the duration of a fuel run without issue tonight.
Yeah, we have talked about how the cars are having trouble, drivers are having trouble. Look at Austin Dillon as he enters turn 3. He gets up the racetrack. He doesn't just lose a little speed, he loses a ton of speed. And look at the stampede coming. They're going by him. He lost 7 spots by making one small mistake. That's the fine line these drivers have to deal with. Dave, you got something else?
And Jeff, more spots after that. He started 12th. I looked, he was back to 27th last time I checked. Austin radioed into his crew. Do I have a flat tire or something? I can't tell. Right now he's just trying to save from wrecking that race car because he's not in the chase yet. He is by points, but he's only to the good enough to not want to lose a lot of points.
And Steve, I think that part of that is this is the first time all the race cars have been on the racetrack together in this low downforce package. They've all had a lot of track time, but not in traffic. And the cars are going to drive worse tonight than he did at any point in practice during the weekend.
Young drivers, nose to tail, the 24. Chase Elliott, just 20 years old. Ryan Blaney in the 21, only 22 years old, out of High Point, North Carolina.
And Rick, we talk about how difficult turns 3 and 4 is. Here's Ricky Stenhouse Jr. all the way on the exit of turn 4. Gets loose, makes pretty good contact with the outside wall. Luckily, the 42 of Kyle Larson, you see there in the red and white car, was very observant, knew the 17 was in trouble, and went down to the inside. And now we have a car on the wall in the middle of 3 and 4.
That's Ricky Stenhouse Jr. again. Up into the wall. He got into the gray, and the caution comes out. The lap before, he hit the wall in 4. The right front tire down, a lot of damage to the right side of that car. He was running 22nd at the time.
Take a quick look at it here.
So he's driving down the back straightaway, goes into turn 3. We know he hit the wall already once before. Probably has damage to the car. Looks like to me it probably cut a tire down, ends up getting into the wall. But all that started because of what happened the lap before. And this is what we've been talking about all weekend long. We've been seeing these kind of incidences happen. This track is tough.
Very difficult to figure out the handling. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. into the wall early. NASCAR Race View gives you access to features that let you follow your favorite driver as you're on the track. Get live stats, leaderboards, driver and team communications, and more, all on your devices. It's available now for an all-new low price when you visit NASCAR.com/raceview. Welcome back to the Quaker State 400 presented by Advance Auto Parts. And top cars, leaders did not come to pit road under this most recent caution. There is a competition caution that's going to take place on lap 25, so they would not have been able to put fuel in the cars anyway until we get to that lap 25. Again, I had mentioned earlier a decal, the badge going on the A-posts of all the cars tonight, showing respect and thinking about the fallen officers from Dallas. We listened in to Tony Stewart's radio just moments ago. Here's what they had to say.
Office, Sun's going to be really brutal. Center exit of 3 and 4 here for a little while here. They'll be fine.
Yeah, that sun is setting, and so as you go through 3 and 4, the sun is right in your eyes. Just as you go through the exit of the center of 3, the sun just gets right in your eyes, and it's going to be like that for a little while.
Sunset 9:06 is what it's. What we had expected the sunset to be at Sparta, Kentucky today. 2x2 once again. Kevin Harvick, Martin Truex Jr. making up the front row as they come into the restart zone. Green flag back in the air. A great run by Kevin Harvick on the outside line. he rockets away from the 78 of Martin Truex Jr. Jimmy Johnson trying to make that outside line work on Brad Keselowski. Jimmy Johnson in the 48. Brad Keselowski moves in front of him in the 2. Also, the 20 of Matt Kenseth making the pass.
And look how aggressive the 48 of Jimmy Johnson wants to get back to the bottom. As you mentioned earlier, Jeff, protect the bottom. He lost one position through 3 and 4. He knows he needs to get to the bottom before 1 and 2.
Yeah, that Blaney up there, he's worked himself all the way up to 7th. You know, he started at 15, so he's made a big move to start this race.
Side by side, Kyle Busch on the outside of Trevor Bayne.
See Kyle Busch way up in the outside. I think you can make the outside work in 3 and 4, but you're going to have to be in the second groove. Battle for the lead.
A little bit of a wiggle there out of Kevin Harvick as he runs that second line. Martin Truex Jr. Martin Truex Jr. looking to the inside. And what was the wiggle all about with Kevin Harvick out there? As we see Martin looking once again inside.
You know, it's amazing that it looks like Martin really gets a run down the straights. Like, he doesn't like he's that much faster in 3 and 4, or, in the corner, but he really looks like he runs down the straightaway.
And Jeff, if you didn't get that radio transmission, that was from Martin Truex Jr. playing the Jaws theme, if you will, circling in the waters, trying to get the lead from Kevin Harvick.
And Marty, the 4 car just a little bit tight from the center off. Jeff, can you explain why that might account for the bobble?
Yeah, well, when you are tight from the center off, you kind of get offline a little bit. You have to be in the throttle a little harder than you want to be. If you're not, though, the guy behind you is going to get you. So you're in the throttle, you've got the front tires not turning the way they want to turn, and then the back starts to not be able to keep up with the front. So that's why you end up having to overcorrect with the wheel, and that's why you see the car move around.
A little over 5 laps away from the competition caution. So Kevin Harvick and Martin Truex Jr. running 1 and 2. They've separated themselves from 3rd place, Matt Kenseth, by a 2.5 seconds already. Look at Kevin Harvick's eyes looking in the mirror, watching what Martin Truex Jr. is doing.
Look how much busier inside the cockpit 3 and 4 is. This end of the racetrack is much more difficult, especially on corner entry. It seems like Kevin Harvick's pretty secure from the middle off. We heard a little bit of a tight condition. He's pretty relaxed down the straightaway. Takes his right hand off the wheel, puts it back on here for the entrance to turn 1.
And I think Martin Truex, if he's going to get by the 4 of Kevin Harvick, he's just going to have to pass him. This kind of racetrack to me is to Kevin Harvick's advantage, because he can be very precise when he needs to be. He's going to hit his mark every time, meaning he's going to be where he needs to be every single lap. He's not going to make many mistakes. Martin Truex is just going to have to outrun him if he can pass him.
And Martin Truex Jr. has been phenomenal on 1.5 mile tracks this year. As a matter of fact, he has led 739 laps on 1.5 mile tracks. Second best, Kyle Busch at 143. Let's listen into Brad Keselowski's radio.
Reference to the guys around us, I don't feel like we're driving in 3, stupid causing our issues. Like we're in the middle between the 20 and 48. We go down to the white line. We may gain half a car length. That's it. It's not stupid.
It's a great example of using all your tools within the race team. That was Brad Keselowski's spot at explaining that it sounds like they have some issues in 3 and 4, some handling issues, and he was letting Brad and Paul Wolf know that from the roof, in his opinion, Brad's not overdriving turn 3. Sometimes the driver needs that input. Hey, am I entering the corner too low, too high, too fast? And he's saying, no, it looks pretty normal. I love he kept using the word stupid, which I guess means he's relatively close to the other cars around him. But that information will help Paul Wolf know that truly is a handling issue and not something that Brad can do from behind the wheel.
And Steve, as we expected, a lot of these drivers saying that they're struggling with their cars once they get into traffic. The rookie Chase Elliott saying he was a little bit free into turn 3, but only around other cars. He said, by myself, it was great. So as a crew chief, what do you do when he comes down pit road? Do you make an adjustment to help him in traffic? Mike?
Well, Kelly, it's been a pretty smooth weekend despite all the changes here for the 21 team and Ryan Blaney. He told me they made very small changes throughout the course of the weekend and has been very happy with his race car. It's had speed and good balance. Right now, just a little bit snug off in traffic, but very happy with it otherwise.
Well, I'll tell you, Rick, what I'm going to do if my car's not very good in traffic when we come down pit road is be very efficient, maybe take no tires, fuel only, maybe not even fill up my tank and try to beat the cars off pit road. I feel as a crew chief, you're going to have to help your driver out. We've talked all weekend long about how treacherous this Kentucky racetrack is. The aerodynamics are definitely going to be worse back in traffic, so get your car closer to the front.
Steve, how can you not take tires when the competition caution is really for crew chiefs and teams to be able to see the tire wear?
Well, that's the intent, but I believe that there is a new line of aggressiveness when it comes to pit strategy, and these crew chiefs are going to do it. I truly expect cars not to take tires and not fill up with fuel. Just get a few seconds of fuel to try to be the first car off pit road.
So strategy, I think Ari will be playing as the caution has come out. This is the competition caution. Out in front, Kevin Harvick and Martin Truex Jr. have been playing a little bit. They've been playing nicely up front. You heard
It's easy for you to say.
Well, Martin Truex Jr. giving the dun 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 the Jaws music as he was getting to the inside of the floor of Kevin Harvick.
All these drivers are going to be working so hard tonight, and to your point, Steve, the pit crews are going to have to deliver. The strategy is going to have to deliver. With this low downforce package, being around other cars is difficult and it's treacherous. You cannot take a car that's leading the race, running second or third, and put it back in seventh or eighth. That's a huge disadvantage. Pit crews are going to have to deliver.
Rick, with 39 cars in the lead lap, we saw an accident on pit road early in the Xfinity race last night with Cole Custer in the 88. We'll see tonight if the Sprint Cup drivers are more successful getting on and off pit road. That becomes even more difficult when everyone isn't in the pit box for roughly the same amount of time. If everyone takes 4 tires, as a driver, Jeff, you can kind of judge when cars are coming and leaving. But when teams are only taking 2 or no tires, very difficult. Communication between the driver and crew chief leaving pit road will be key.
Yeah, the 2-tire thing is very difficult because you're leaving so early and other cars are still coming in. Kevin Harvick's got a huge advantage because the qualifying being rained out, starting on the stall number 1.
Mike Massaro.
And the field heads down pit road, Rick, right now, and keep a look on the 20 car, upper left-hand side of your screen. Matt Kenseth having a little bit of trouble with turns 3 and 4. That's where the car's been tight. They're going to make a 2-tire change on the 20, Marty.
Other than trying to sing the Jaws theme, there's only been 5 words spoken on Martin Truex Jr.'s radio. Cole, we're pretty good right here. No tires, no changes, 4 Goodyear tires, Kelly.
Keselowski said that as he ran, it got tight in the center on both ends. He's been working the track bar. They also helped him with a small adjustment on pit road. 2 tires, Dave.
The tricky end of the track for Kevin Harvick, a little bit tight. He took 2 right side tires from Goodyear and a full of Sunoco fuel.
So it looks like most took 2 tires, Kevin Harvick included. He stays up front. Welcome back to Kentucky Speedway. NASCAR has added a lap of caution. We'll come back for the restart right after this. NASCAR on NBCSN is brought to you by Credit One Bank, the official credit card of NASCAR, and by Toyota. Let's go places.
We have a new leader, Rick, the 41 of Kurt Busch. As they come into the restart zone, Tony Gibson played a little strategy, took 4 tires at lap 12, stayed out of this caution. Halfway through a fuel run, we'll have to see if the cleaner air helps the handling issues on the 41 here.
And look back at row 4, 78, Mark Truex Jr. The pit crew did not have a good pit stop, putting toward the back.
Out in front, Kurt Busch hangs on to the lead. Kevin Harvick running second now.
41 did a great job. It's really surprising me the confidence these race teams are having with the top group. A big wiggle of the 2 of Brad Keselowski, but the top group of 1 and 2. We talked about how treacherous the racetrack is.
Around goes the 48. Jimmy Johnson around and into the wall. Caution comes out again.
Hold the brakes.
A backup car, Jimmy Johnson. In practice, got into the wall, and we just heard take it to the garage.
Restarts are so important. You can pick up spots or you can lose spots. You have to drive aggressively if you're going to make something happen. See the 48, he just got in there and got loose. I mean, plain and simple, he was underneath another car, lost the side force, lost down force, had to chase up the racetrack. It just got away from him.
Yeah, almost in a 3 wide position. I don't think if he was completely 3 wide, but Kyle Busch was looking underneath the 48. He had another car on the outside of him. It looks like it was the 21 of Ryan Blaney. Definitely a compromised position in the toughest end of the racetrack to have all that. And now we're on board with Dylan. Just be a great view of what happened.
You can see he gets in the corner, goes to the yellow line like he'd want to go, and see it start to wiggle. Now it's just gets away from him. You know, he just tried to keep the pace up because on these restarts, like I said, you can't give up spots. So he got a little free. He went ahead and went to the throttle thinking he could carry the speed off the corner. He just didn't have enough grip to make it happen.
Yeah, I was wrong. He was nowhere near 3 wide. Kyle Busch just filled the spot that Jimmy left when he spun up off the yellow line.
And this is what we've seen in practice. We've seen this all weekend long. Cars spinning out by themselves, losing control. I mean, this is lap 33 of a 267 lap race with a 6-time champion making a mistake. That's how difficult this is going to be tonight.
Kurt Busch using pit strategy out in front. Jimmy Johnson, the 6-time champion, behind the wall. Welcome back to Kentucky Speedway, getting ready for the restart. Before that, let's go to the infield in Rutledge Wood.
Rick, we had a real special treat before the race. Team Fast Track Skydivers brought the Kentucky, Indiana, and the Ohio flags all down inside of the racetrack. They've got over 20 members. They've done 300,000 skydives. They even took our own Kelly Stavis up with them this week. Kelly, how was it?
I think that the smile on my face when I landed back on the ground says it all. But, Rudd, I got to call you out. You were asked to do it. You chickened out. But I guess if the idea of being harnessed to a 6'6" man and jumping out of an airplane isn't your deal, I get it. Team Fast Track, such an awesome group of guys. Most of them have served in the military, and they continue to give back to military families. A great group of guys, and they're here tonight. Rick?
Definitely appreciate all of this. 2x2 once again. Kurt Busch choosing the outside line. Kevin Harvick on the inside, making up row 1 as they enter the Thank Smoke restart zone. Once again, the outside line works for Kurt Busch. Brad Keselowski trying to make it work in the 2. Here comes Matt Kenseth in the 20.
Let's see it's really interesting what happens in the turn 3. Kevin Harvick is right behind the 41. Let's see if he can make him loose, get in the corner.
When you say that, trying to take a little air off the spoiler that's very small now.
No question. Brad Keselowski with a big move. Big wiggle.
You know, almost looked like there was contact there from the 78 of Martin Truex. It looked like the 2 couldn't get in the gas as quick as he wanted to, and the 78 was right behind him. If there wasn't contact, he must have just took the air off the 2.
And with this low downforce package, that's a tool that the drivers have. You now can pull the air off the car in front of you. The closer you can get, see Kevin Harvick making a move for the lead.
and takes it away from Kurt Busch.
And I like Kurt Busch's thought there. Let's not challenge him on the outside of 3 and 4. It's early in the race. We're only at lap 38. We're going to let the 4 go. Unfortunately for the 41, he's lost that clean air now. Now he's under attack from the 20 and Matt Kenseth.
Matt Kenseth moves to the inside of Kurt Busch, and he'll take that spot away. Kenseth up to second. Kurt Busch back to third.
Sorry, Kurt Busch pitted earlier. He pitted on lap 12, so that's when he put tires on. All these other guys pitted later. Kurt was not able to put fuel on that run, so he will have to pit earlier than everybody else if this stays green, Marty.
And Jeff, you can't discount the call by Tony Gibson. Remember, they started 39th when they took the green flag, and when they pitted at lap 12 after that, Kurt said, the car's terrible, we've got to pit when the competition called out. But the call by Tony Gibson at least got him some track position. Steve, you have to make moves like that sometime when you're that far back in the field. If they wind up 8th, 9th, 10th, somewhere in that range, when the next caution comes out, that's plus 30 spots. You can't gain that many unless you do a move like that.
Absolutely, Marty. You have to be aggressive on pit road, aggressive with your pit calls. And sometimes aggressiveness is to stay on the racetrack, but it's not just pit calls we're seeing with the aggression. On these restarts, it's crazy. We saw the 2 of Brad Keselowski in 3 and 4 get really loose. Now he's kind of recovered, trying to get by the 22, his teammate, Joey Logano.
Two teammates racing for Team Penske. Take a look at the move. It was Martin Truex Jr. in the 78 that got into the back of the 2.
And the 2 got slow, had to check up a little bit. Martin just didn't anticipate it and ran up and got into the back of the 2.
And teammates, Logano sideways kisses the wall with the right rear quarter panel.
And that doesn't seem like a lot of damage, but that's a very sensitive area, especially with the very small rear spoilers to have damage on that right rear quarter panel. We talked about the looseness into turn 3. It's only going to make that even worse.
The deck lid on the back of the 22 also has been damaged with that little hit that we saw Joey Logano. Dave.
And Rick, he's been trying to fix that race car himself, changing things like the brake bias in the cockpit, also the track bar. Those are adjustments he can make to the handling of the car to try to make it better, especially in traffic. That's where he's had the most trouble.
Yeah, you see that damage on the right rear quarter panel, Rick. I don't think it's going to hurt him as much down here in turns 1 and 2. He has a little grip in the race car, but the last lap entering turn 3, he lost a lot of time to the 11 behind him. We'll see if he does it again or if Joey's able to adapt to how the car's driving now. But I really just think, Jeff, there's nothing to lean on. That side force, he's lost that support of the right side, kind of his crutch or his cane. When he leans on in the corner, you see Denny Hamlin, the big wiggle out of the 22, and Denny Hamlin capitalizes.
Yeah, you just don't, you have to have a certain amount of grip to go as fast as everybody else, and now you've handicapped your race car by getting into the wall, and that right rear quarter panel makes tons of side force. It holds the side of the car on corner entry. When you lose it, you just have to slow down. You cannot keep pace. So until they can get in and get this fixed, it's probably going to continue to hurt them.
One driver who has already lost it, got into the wall, was the 48 of Jimmy Johnson. Mike?
Yeah, and Ricky, this is exactly what his crew chief Chad Knaus wanted to avoid today. I spoke with him this afternoon. He said, we just want to finish with all the fenders on, pointing to the fact that they had crashed out of 2 of the last 4 races, and now this is a 3rd crash. In addition, this is the 2nd car they've crashed this weekend. He said this has taken a toll on the team. They're extremely tired because of the work they've had to put in over the last 30 days. Lots of more work going on right now in the garage, repairing left side damage, heavy left side damage on the 48.
Rick, I know it's a 6-time champion, nicknamed Superman, but even bigger teams, 6-time champions, can use momentum. And they also have to try to recover from the downward spiral of bad momentum, and that seems like the 48's on right now, just heading in the wrong direction.
Chase Elliott in the 24, trying to stay out in front of Brad Keselowski in the 2. Chase Elliott out of Dawsonville, Georgia. Son of Bill Elliott. And the 22, as we saw earlier, get into the wall. Dave, what are they talking about now?
Well, Rick, it's disaster planning just in case. And sometimes teams do this, well, if they need to. Right here is a right rear quarter panel for Joey's car. If they need to, if he needs to, come in, put it on, and they'll bolt this onto the car. Steve, that'd be the extreme they need to go to if they think it's really bad.
Well, Dave, I think they need to come up with a plan because you see here consistently the 22 losing spots. We saw the 5 of Casey Kane go by. Now the 42 of Kyle Larson right behind him. I expect him to easily clear him going into turn 3. That side force, it's hard to understand, but basically when these drivers go into the corner, Rick, and lean on the right side of the car. It's kind of like leaning on a crutch. They can put a lot of weight in it. When that side force gone, it's like that crutch gets kicked out from underneath them. Joey Logano turns down to the corner, expecting to have that support. It's not there. There's just nothing he can do, Jeff, but enter the corner slower.
And to make matters worse, there's no banking. Like the banking in turn 3, it comes into the corner way late. And turns 1 and 2, when you drive in the corner, and you can see he doesn't get hurt as bad in 1 and 2. But when you drive in the corner, you had banking quickly. As he enters turn 3, the track's very flat, and it continues to be flat. You don't get banking until you get about halfway through the corner. So in that flat area, that's where it's really going to hurt him, because it's flat and you're trying to turn and you don't have that rear side force.
Well, as Joey Logano struggles, a car that's not struggling is the 21 of Ryan Blaney. All the way up into the 5th position, making big moves. Since the restart, he's up 5 positions. He's found a lot of speed in his race car. It's a good run for the 21.
And Logano is holding up these cars, and now Kyle Larson's going to make the move to the inside, try to get by him, but you can see the train of cars lining up behind Joey Logano. They just couldn't get by, and now with Logano moving up the track, they'll all go by.
There is a long train. There's about 10 cars behind him, and he's going to lose a lot of spots here in the next few laps.
The 34 of Chris Buescher, 23-year-old out of Prosper, Texas, also getting by the 22. And the damage got so bad that the 22 of Joey Logano into the wall even harder. 26-year-old out of Middleton, Connecticut, now in the garage. Take a look at what happened. And we are under caution.
See the yellow and red car going down the back straightaway. See the right front failed. You saw the hood blow up. That right there was when the right front failed, and now it's just the car is just not going to turn. It's going to go straight. I'm sure most likely damage from when he got in the wall earlier, although I didn't really see the right front of the car hit the wall at any point. But we have seen no tire issues in the Cup cars at all this weekend, so hard to believe it didn't have something to do with it. Mike?
And some of the leaders starting to come down pit road now, Jeff. Among them, Matt Kenseth took right sides only on the last stop. The car's been getting progressively looser over the course of that run. The cause for the same this time around, right sides only, Marty.
Martin Truex Jr. pretty happy with this car. He said, though, the last few laps of that run, he's top right of your screen, the car got a little bit too loose. They're going to make an air pressure change. That's it. Carl Edwards, right side tires as well. He has to stall a little bit to get around his teammate, Denny Hamlin. A little bit loose, not bad. Dave?
Right side Goodyear's last time for Kevin Harvick. Right side Goodyear's this time, a fill of Sunoco fuel.
Two cars stayed out. Kevin Harvick won the race off of pit road. Two tires once again, the strategy on pit road. Welcome back to NASCAR Sprint Cup Series Racing, presented by KFC. You can watch every Sprint Cup Series race with the NBC Sports app and get closer with additional camera angles, driver stats, and track information. It's available on mobile, tablets, and connected TVs. Download the app and find out more at NBCSports.com/live. Right along with Joey Logano. Down the backstretch he goes, and listen to the tire in
Fast guys. Hold it up there, got some more coming.
Welcome back. Pace truck making its way onto pit road. Field in the hands of Brad Keselowski because he didn't come to pit road under the most recent caution. As they come into the restart zone, Kevin Harvick on his inside.
Got loose down there on the bottom, had to lost momentum because he was loose.
And it looked as though Brad was using the same technique that we saw the 4 use many times to get the lead. And now the 4 drops all the way back to 4th as Brad Keselowski shoots out to the lead. Great restart by the 78 of Martin Truex Jr. Also, he moves up to 2nd.
And I'm
Chase Elliott.
Yes, right back there you see the 24. I was getting ready to say I'm impressed with the 4 of Kevin Harvick, though. Even though he got taken 3 wide down the backstretch, he did a really good job in the top lane of 3 and 4 to kind of stop the bleeding, only fall back to 3rd. And then we saw Chase Elliott up high, now crossing over, trying to get by the 18 of Kyle Busch.
I had mentioned the same technique that Kevin Harvick had been using. Brad Keselowski got very close to the right side of the 4, taking a little bit more air off of the spoiler that's really almost not there anymore. And the 4 got a little bit loose, and the 2 was able to go right by. As we see the 78 now reeling in the 2 of Brad Keselowski.
You mentioned coming to the restart, Rick, about the 2 staying on the racetrack. He has about 30 laps on his tires. It would be interesting to see if that hurts his speed versus the 78. It's kind of be hard to tell, though, because the 78 of Martin Truex has been so fast for the whole race. You're not sure if it's a tire deficit or just a better race car.
A little aggressive call. I mean, he's halfway through a fuel run. He'll have to pit here pretty quick. See the 78 making a move off turn 4.
Martin Truex Jr. trying to take the lane away from Brad Keselowski. He'll do it. Martin Truex Jr. out in front in Kentucky.
It's great sound. New leader. It's you.
Leader, and here comes the 4. Kevin Harvick gets by Brad Keselowski. He'll take 2nd away.
This is the same thing we saw with the 41 earlier when he tried to stay on the racetrack. The 2 did okay out front as the leader, but as soon as he gets back in traffic, now in 3rd, instantly under attack again. The 20 of Matt Kenseth looking to take the 3rd position.
You guys, you can tell Martin Truex Jr. having a little fun inside the race car today, singing the Jaws theme earlier, screaming leader once he took the lead just a moment ago. And earlier when the team had a bad pit stop, he didn't get down on him. He said, hey guys, is there anything I can do better? Showing terrific leadership. This time the crew came through, a fantastic stop. Truex now in the lead for the first time all night. Kelly?
Brad Keselowski, who's out there on older tires, as he did not come down to pit road, but he has been pretty happy with the balance in his car throughout. He's been making small adjustments to the track bar inside the cockpit. He said, though, he's tight in the center and at times just gets loose in and off just randomly, Steve.
And that's sometimes the hardest thing to fix, Rick, when it's random. It's one thing for the driver to be able to anticipate it. But we've talked all weekend long about this new racetrack, but also that low downforce package that NASCAR brought here. I really think that lack of downforce makes the car just a little more inconsistent for these drivers.
And when we say NASCAR brought here, the drivers have been asking for this. They wanted more downforce to be taken off of these cars. Now that there's more downforce off of the cars, now the drivers are saying, man, it's really hard to control these cars and to find the handle on these cars.
But that's what you want. You know, what the drivers want is they want to drive the race cars. They don't want to run wide open around the racetrack because you don't feel like you have the ability to impact how the car drives and how fast it can go. When you lift off the throttle and the car drives bad, now it's the communication between you and your crew chief, how you drive the race car, where you make sacrifices to slow down so you can go faster somewhere else, all that matters. So that's why these drivers want them to drive bad, because they all think they can do it better than the next guy, and they think it's an advantage to them.
Michigan winner Joey Logano already out of the car in the garage. Let's go to Mike.
His day did not end the way he had hoped, Rick, that's for sure. Joey, what happened?
It's just I got loose off of turn 4 and, knocked the rear end over, and I got really loose. And then, when you get loose, you got to start slowing down a lot into the corner, use a lot of brake. And I'm assuming I just overheated the bead, and the right front blew out, and brakes were gone, and the whole nine. So it was kind of compounded off the first accident there off of turn 4. So unfortunate for the Shell Pennzoil team. Just, thank goodness for the safety in these cars. I hit a ton. I had a long time to think about how much that one was going to hurt. So pretty impressive with the safer barrier, and everyone does there. So appreciate that. Just, we'll go back to work and be there in New Hampshire.
Short night for Joey Logano, the guy who just happened to win the last race with this low downforce package back in Michigan.
He'll be heading home when they go back to the New England area.
You heard Joey said he had a long time to think about it, and you know it's the worst feeling when you're driving. You drive in the corner and you lift off the throttle and you hear this explosion because you know what's coming next. And you can see right here, he lifts off the throttle, watch the hood, boom, and there's nothing you can do. He's got the wheel turned, it's going straight. You know it's going to hurt. You know it's coming. It takes forever to get to the wall. Terrible feeling.
Tough way for the night to end for Joey Logano. Teammate Brad Keselowski trying to stay in front of Carl Edwards now. Carl Edwards in the 19. Chase Elliott in the 24, just behind Carl Edwards.
Steve, I'm real curious about the two-car strategy. They pitted. They didn't pit. They're halfway through a fuel run when they didn't pit. What? I mean, that's risky. Talk to me. Explain it to me.
Well, it's very aggressive. I think what you're seeing is a car with wins. Paul Wolf says we're in the chase. This isn't a track that we're going to come back to in the chase. This night is all about winning, so let's try to be aggressive. He must feel that the clean air, the track position is more valuable or risk losing a lap for, because if they don't get a caution in the next 18 or 20 laps, they're going to have to pit under green and lose a lap. But you know, we talk about taking risks, being aggressive. What winning and getting you in the chase does, this is what it does. It allows Paul Wolf and Brad Keselowski to be way outside the box on pit strategy.
Do you think it's a sign, too, that the crew chiefs, some of the crew chiefs think that we're going to see a lot of cautions? I mean, to make this call, he certainly feels like he's going to get a caution before he has to come on pit road under green, right?
I think they've seen all weekend long how treacherous the track is, and they expect that to continue throughout the night.
Let's drop back to 14th. Greg Biffle running in that spot, Marty.
And Rick, when I talked to Greg Biffle earlier today, he said, honestly, right now, we're an 11th to 16th place team. We got to figure out how to get beyond that a little bit. But with all the Roush cars finishing in the top 10 last week, he told me when I walked in the shop this week, I could just tell things were different. Everybody was a little happier. They're coming here with Camp to Kentucky with a little bit more speed as well. How about the corporate teammate, Chris Buescher? He's back a little bit. I just talked to his crew chief, Bob Osborne. They've been having a fantastic weekend. I asked them why they decided to take 4 tires on this last stop for Chris Buescher. And he said, I kind of want to get off sequence with everybody else. When everybody else comes down and takes 4, maybe the next time, we might go 2 tires. Buescher with a little bit of a wiggle there. But they told me the test here a couple of weeks ago, Chris Buescher was able to do that. That was huge for this race team. It allowed him to bond with the team a little bit. And that was the first ever Sprint Cup Series test for Chris Buescher. And by the way, he loves this racetrack. That doesn't hurt either, guys. Currently in 19.
Started 34th, so a big move up toward the front, even with that 4-tire stop.
And I understand the theory of trying to get off sequence with the leaders. The concern I have is I'm not sure the leaders are ever going to take 4 tires. So while I like Bob Osborne's thinking, I'm not sure that the application is going to play out like he hopes, because what I've seen from these front 8 or 10, we just talked Brad Keselowski, he didn't even pit with half a fuel load missing. I think when Martin Truex Jr., the leader, comes to pit road under caution, it might be 2 more right sides, maybe only 2 left sides.
Track position important, although there are 193 laps still to go. Martin Truex Jr. leading in Kentucky. take a look at today's biggest mover. It's Kurt Busch. He's made up 18 spots. Presented by Sprint. Switch today and save 50% on most Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile rates. Visit a Sprint store or sprint.com/network today. And the cautions just come out. The 83 hard impact. Matt DiBenedetto up into the wall. He was 29th when he got into the wall, and now he's rolling once again. This could play into Brad Keselowski's strategy.
Well, it absolutely saved his chance of not having to pit under green. He was getting close to the end of his fuel run, so this will drag Brad Keselowski and all of the leaders to pit road. But once again, with only, about 25, 26 laps on this fuel run, I would expect all the crew chiefs to still only take either right or left side tires.
You see Matt DiBenedetto, he's in the corner. Car looks like it just goes straight, almost maybe like another tire failure. I tell you what this has me thinking, and we heard Joey Logano say it. This racetrack is much more like a short track than it is than a mile and a half, typical mile and a half. It makes me wonder if these drivers aren't having to use more brake than they anticipated to get the car slowed down, and they're melting beads. We've seen this before. We've seen rotor issues when we come to racetracks when teams aren't expecting them to be this slow. Quite possibly the teams just weren't prepared for the pace. You have to slow down getting into these corners.
And not just the track, because remember, Jeff, this is that new aero package.
Exactly.
Well, when you shrink that rear spoiler to take the downforce off, you also take the aerodynamic drag off. So with a big tall spoiler, you lift, the air itself slows you down, pushing against the spoiler. Well, when you lift in a small spoiler, guess what? The only thing slowing you down into the corner at this point are the brakes.
And when you're loose getting in the corner like they've been talking about, you dial front brake in it. Guess what that does? That just heats those wheels up more.
Let's look a little closer at that with our NASCAR Heat Evolution animation.
Yeah, so when we talk about lower downforce, how did NASCAR accomplish that? When you look right here under the front of the car, that's the front splitter. Well, NASCAR decided we'll remove basically the back half of the splitter, making it much smaller. What that smaller splitter does is takes the air underneath the front of the car, makes it very dirty, creating less front downforce.
Yeah, and then as we go toward the back of the car, the driver's best friend is that rear spoiler. It makes downforce. You see the blue arrow pushing the air down, making downforce. You cut that spoiler off, watch the arrows go over top of the spoiler. That's the air. Now the downforce is much less, pushing down on the back of the car, not making the downforce near as much as the tall spoiler.
And when you talk about small spoilers, look how tiny that is on the back of the 22. Joe Logano, big wiggle. 6-time champion Jimmy Johnson loses the car all by himself. And then right here, the other thing that does, Jeff, is cars affect one another. The two passing the teammate with the 22 of Joey Logano gets inside him. The air just pushes the 22 up the racetrack and into the wall. And now the leaders are on pit road, Mike.
And they are among them. Matt Kenseth, Jason Ratcliffe, his crew chief, has not called for any left side tires all evening long. It's going to be interesting to see whether he does so here. They go to work on the right side. Kenseth has been saying the car's been getting loose throughout the course of the night. Meanwhile, Ryan Blaney, he's been happy with his race car. No changes there, just 2 tires. Marty?
Leader Martin Truex Jr. already gone. Just 2 right side tires for him. A slight air pressure adjustment to tighten up the car, Dave.
Right side tires again for Harvick. I'm not sure he's going to take lefts unless they turn around and go the other way. He's gone.
Race off pit road. A close one. Kevin Harvick takes the spot away from Martin Truex Jr., and he does it on pit road. 2 tires again. Tonight's aerial coverage provided by our partners at Smithfield Foods. And what a view of this area of Sparta, Kentucky. Kentucky Speedway, nestled into the hills of Kentucky. NASCAR Drive is NASCAR.com's live race day companion. Select your in-car video or camera angle, access integrated driver stats, lap-by-lap commentary, and social conversations in real time. You won't miss a lap when you visit NASCAR.com/drive on your personal computer now. And welcome back to the Quaker State 400 presented by Advanced Auto Parts. A very close call and a little bit of damage for the 21 of Ryan Blaney on pit road.
See the 21 pulling out. Cole Witt's coming in. Contact, pretty big contact with the 21. We talked about the reduction in downforce. Now that right front fender has been in. That's even a larger reduction of downforce and also a major change in side force. So I'm not sure I wouldn't have to pit right there and try to fix it. At some point, they're probably going to have to fix it.
And guys, Jeremy Bullins is looking very closely at the car right now to see whether or not that fender is touching the tire. They thought, at least from their first examination, that there is no tire rub. Their only concern is how it's going to affect the handling from here on out. The car's been real good until this point, but who knows?
Yeah, there will be travel. I mean, when the car goes under load, when it goes into the corners, there's going to be more travel. That tire could get up into the sheet metal.
It looks like most of the damage is forward of where any travel would happen, though. I don't think it's going to get into it. You never know when the cars do travel, strange things happen. Remember, the tires move a little bit and flex a little bit as well.
I don't think it's going to rub, but we just saw the 22 of Joey Logano earlier in the day damage the right rear quarter panel and sink like a stone through the field. I think the 21's making a mistake here. They need to come to pit road, get the aerodynamics repaired. We still have 181 to go in this race.
Let's listen in to Tony Stewart once again on the radio.
Took a little bit of a lumps here, but you know it'll work out for us in the end. We can take two now from now on. No worries, bud. We'll get a read on this. There's other guys that did the same thing as us, and others that did the other options. So we'll get a read on it. We're fine.
Already planning ahead, Rick. Crew chief is already deciding we're going to put 4 tires on it now so we can continue to take rights from here to the end of the race. The concern I have is he chose to do it when the teams only needed about 6.5 to 7 seconds worth of fuel. Perhaps there would have been a better opportunity, but maybe he's the first to do it. If he'll commit to that strategy and continue to take 2 tires, maybe he can gain that track position back. As I just mentioned, 181 to go, and they're already considering how they're going to pit strategy to the finish.
5 cautions, 23 caution laps already. At this point in the race, the most cautions that we have seen at Kentucky Speedway in the previous 5 races. Kevin Harvick, Martin Truex Jr. Harvick on the outside, race leader as they go through the restart zone. Green flag back in the air. Great restart for Martin Truex Jr. Can he get out in front? Loses the air and Kevin Harvick goes right by.
Rewind.
Oh, and around goes the 21 of Ryan Blaney. Chase Elliott as well. The 2 youngest on the racetrack are around.
I saw it 3 wide, and I'm wondering how in the world is that going to work? And it didn't.
Chase Elliott actually looked like his car was relatively in control. The 21 lost control of his car first and had no choice as he went up the racetrack and caught barely in the left rear of the 24, sending him around as well.
The track's just not wide enough for 3 wide. Everybody's trying to fight to get to the bottom, get as low as you can. Even if you're on the outside or in the middle, you want to get as low on the racetrack as you can. And there's contact early getting into the corner, and then they're just all in each other and out of control.
Both of these young men are chase grid contenders just above the yellow line. These points are going to start adding up that they lose.
These restarts are so crazy. We've talked about it. You have to be aggressive. You have to make things happen. And this all started because everybody's trying to make something happen. 78 gets pulled around by the 4 car, slows everybody up. Now we're 3 wide going into the corner. Somebody's got to make a decision right here. Do I want to be 3 wide? 21 gets loose, gets into the side of the 24. Both of them have long nights.
That 21 was right in the middle of the 3 wide. And we have seen Jimmy Johnson, a 6-time champion, be in that position. The same thing happens. It gets loose and up the racetrack he goes. This time he collects the 24 of Chase Elliott. NASCAR on NBCSN is brought to you by Ford. We go further, so you can. And by Coca-Cola. Taste the feeling. That smoke is from this fire. One fan that is here watching the race is going to have a very, very uncomfortable trip back into the parking lot. That is just behind the grandstands. Restart at Kentucky.
This restart seems a little more orderly, Rick. Maybe the drivers are finally trying to convince each other we need to get in line before turn 3. As soon as I say that, though, 2 wide back here in about row 6.
It's Matt Kenseth in the 20 trying to get right down against that yellow line. You see the 18 of Kyle Busch making the move on the 78s, going a little bit higher as Mark Truex Jr. is not going to give up the spot. Jamie McMurray currently up to second. McMurray in the number 1. Haven't talked a lot about Jamie McMurray tonight. The 40-year-old out of Joplin, Missouri has made his way up into the top 2. And Kyle Busch is going to lose another spot, and around they go on the backstretch. Chris Buescher involved in the 34. 44 of Brian Scott also involved in this one. A lot of damage to the 34. Look at the front of that race car.
That took a huge impact right there.
So disappointing for this team. They had ran well in every practice. They showed speed all weekend long. They kept getting themselves further back in the pack. 4 tires on pit road. They got blocked on pit road one time and kept getting them back in the pack. And this is the danger of being back there. They had a good race car tonight.
There's Brian Scott in the 44. Damage to that
we got
car.
Turned around. I don't know if you've seen a replay. Yeah, we come off a 2 there when they got it.
AJ Allmendinger involved. AJ Allmendinger, another one of those drivers you thought could have a good finish here, would help his possibilities of getting into the chase. There, the 44 of Brian Scott is sideways. Saves it coming off of 2, but then looks as though Kyle Larson may have been in the back of him when he came off of 2. And there's the heavy contact.
Yeah, and you saw the backfire out of the tailpipes of the 44 as he was trying to save the car. It looked like he was maybe on and off the throttle. His speed probably reduced. The 42 is right behind him. You see the safer barrier doing a good job absorbing some of the impact there.
When a car gets that slow in front of you, you can be all the way off the gas and you're still pushing them. You know, Kyle Larson looked to be in the back of him, but all the trouble started, and Kyle just couldn't get slowed down.
A little bit of damage to the front end of 10 of Danica Patrick, but a lot of damage to Chris Buescher's number 34. Another look. There was the impact between Chris Buescher and the 44 of Brian Scott. AJ Allmendinger involved, as well as the 95 of Ty Dillon. Some contact there also with the 7 of Regan Smith. Right along with Dale Jr.
Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Clear. Big wreck back here. Caution's out. Good job.
Dale Jr. made a decision to go, and he just stayed with it. Quick decisions have to be made. See the 44 underneath the 11 in a compromising position. That makes you loses all his momentum. The 42's in the back of him. Tony Stewart barely gets by. The 34, big impact. 47. See the 95 of Ty Dillon. He got slowed down pretty well.
And Rick, we talked at the top of the show about the chase grid and what could possibly happen on the chase grid. And just in the last 2 accidents, we've seen the 24 of Chase Elliott, the 21 of Ryan Blaney in major accidents. Now the 47 of AJ Allmendinger. All of those cars are vying for those 5 spots still available by points without a win. Major points implications happening early here at Kentucky.
Unfortunate for Chris Buescher, had been running well early in this race and now will be out. a gorgeous afternoon for racing in New England.
Looking for the big lobster in victory lane.
Lobster time, baby! Woo!
Kyle Busch will win at New Hampshire. And who will win next weekend? We go back to Loudon, a place that, Jeff, you are very familiar with dominating a racetrack. You led every lap, Loudon.
Great racetrack, fun to race on, really energetic fans. One of my favorite places to go, Loudon, New Hampshire.
On Saturday, the Xfinity Series race at 3:30 and the Sprint Cup Series race on Sunday at 1. Kelly.
Down here in the garage with Chase Elliott while his team, the 24 crew, hard at work trying to make repairs, I assume, to try to get you back out here. But Chase, take me through what happened. Did you realize that you guys were going 3 wide?
Yeah, kind of at the last second, I heard him say 3, and I really didn't know how that was going to work, because there's really not enough room. I felt like I was about at the top of the gray, or the bottom of the gray, about as at the top of the black as I could be without getting up in the mess. So, you know, I tried to give as much room as possible, but hey, that's racing, I guess, and we'll try to go get him next week. Good news is we had another fast Napa Chevy. Bad news is that's 3 bad weeks in a row. So for us, we just got to come back and get the job done, bottom line. So we'll try again next week.
We just saw another big wreck that took out a lot of more cars. So how important is it for you guys to try to make the repairs and get back out?
Well, it's definitely important. It's not as important as winning. So you know, that's the most important thing at this point for us. And that's our goal. Just because we had a bad night tonight doesn't mean our goals changed. So we'll try to get it next week.
Okay, thank you, Chase. Mike?
And Kelly, Ryan Blaney taking a very close look at that replay. What did you see?
I don't know. We just got put in a bad spot on that restart a few times, and you got middle of 3 and someone on your bumper, and with a package that is really hard to race 3 wide with, and got loose. Unfortunate. You know, we took 24 out. Obviously, it's not intentional what you want. It hurt us. We both had really good cars, and just get put in spots on restarts that aren't ideal, and things like that happen, unfortunately. But we'll try to get it fixed and get back out there.
It was a rough sequence of events just before that transpired. There was a collision on pit road. What happened there?
We were coming out, and 98 was coming in, or whoever it was, and just communication was off a little bit. But that didn't affect it at all. Just getting put middle of 3, and you know, no one was going to back out. Probably should have backed out and made it a little smarter, but so I don't know about that. But we'll have to go back and look at it. Just unfortunate. You know, you never want to see that happen, especially with someone like that, and with a good car that we had. But we'll move on from it and go to New Hampshire.
Tough situation for Ryan Blaney, who came into the night, Rick, already pretty much on the Chase bubble.
Yeah, unfortunate for those 2 young drivers there in the garage. The fire is out, by the way, in the truck in the parking lot. Beautiful sunset. You're watching the NASCAR Sprint Cup Racing Series presented by KFC. Most laps led tonight, presented by Sprint. And now it's Kevin Harvick, 61 laps led. Switch today and save 50% on most Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile rates. Visit a Sprint store or sprint.com/network today. Kevin Harvick has done very well when he starts on the front row. I want to look at the NASCAR Heat Evolution animation. Ryan Blaney mentioned something just moments ago about a car behind him.
Yeah, so when we go back in the wind tunnel and we see the air moving over our lead car, as the air gets to the back of the car, hits that rear spoiler, makes a downforce. I want to say a lot, but not a lot of rear downforce here. But as the car behind gets close, you see that air move up off the rear spoiler. That trailing car actually affects that. It pushes like a snowplow, pushes air out in front of the trailing car, pushing that air up off the leading car's spoiler, making it very loose. You see right here in this wreck, as Paul Menard in the 27 closes in on the back of the 21, it lifts that air off the deck lid of the 21. The 21 instantly gets loose up into the 24, Jeff.
Yeah, that's right. The 21 was loose, so he couldn't turn. So in that overhead shot, we saw the 24 coming down and getting into the 21. But part of the reason that happened is because as you're loose, you can't turn the wheel. If you turn the wheel to the left and make the corner, you're gonna spin out. So Ryan couldn't turn the wheel, and that's what all that happened. It was all about 3 wide, lack of downforce, and lack of grip.
That's a great visual. A reminder, NASCAR Heat Evolution is released on September 13th. Pre-orders are available online now at NASCARHeat.com. Getting ready for another restart. 3 restarts since we've had a clean one, and 8 cars have been damaged. Let's see if this restart ends up being clean. Kenseth on the outside, Jamie McMurray on the inside. Kevin Harvick out front of Jamie McMurray. Austin Dillon trying to hang on to third on the outside of Martin Truex Jr., and Truex Jr. gets the position. Now teammates side by side, the 18 and the 20. And the 18 surges ahead.
Paul Menard makes a move to the inside of the 20 of Matt Kenseth. Great run for Paul Menard so far. That'll get him up into the top 6.
He clears the 20 as they go into 1 and 2. Of Greg Biffle at KFC Ford. Greg Biffle out of Vancouver, Washington, 46-year-old, has moved into the top 10. He's running 9th.
You see 3-car Boston Dillon. He lost the bottom of the racetrack in the middle of the corner. Could not hold the yellow line. 18 got underneath him coming off turn 4. Made the pass.
It seems like after the restarts, Rick, we see a little bit more patience between cars. When the car gets a preferred position, the other car kind of lets him go, gets back in line. The opposite of what we see in the restarts. Once they get organized, they try to take care of one another at least a little bit. As you see, Kyle Busch, even by himself, doesn't look very comfortable in there. You kind of jumped, Jeff, when you saw the wiggle of the steering wheel.
Yeah, I saw him turn right, and I went, oh no, that's never good. But that's what you're going to see. I mean, it's just difficult. This package, this racetrack, these tires, this is a difficult situation. None of these drivers are, driving like you saw at Daytona last week, where they just barely move the wheel. These guys are having to work the wheel in order to stay in control.
Jamie McMurray backs off, getting into turns 3 and 4, and that allows Martin Truex Jr. to move by.
Rick, I love the degree of difficulty. We talk about how difficult it is. Well, these are the best drivers in the U.S., the best drivers in the world in a stock car. I want to see them work. They're truly athletes, and that athleticism is on display when we go to these in-cars, watch them try to maneuver this racetrack.
Last accident had a big hit for Chris Buescher. Marty's with him.
Rick, we've been praising Chris Buescher all evening long for the race he was driving. What was your perspective of that accident, Chris?
It just happened. So the 44 came down right in front of me. I don't know what happened ahead, but just really unfortunate. It's by far the best gloves Ford Fusion we brought to the racetrack this year. The guys did a really nice job. Proud of them for it. Without qualifying, we started based off points, and we've had 3 of these situations super speedways already. So we're down in points. We didn't get a good pit stall selection. We started without track position, and we're making our way up there. Every restart we moved forward, but it just didn't work out. We keep taking more and more downforce away from these things, and everybody wants to take more away, but It makes racing great, but it turns into a lot of accidents on these restarts as well.
Was indeed an impressive night for Chris Buescher, but it's over early, Rick.
Yeah, very unfortunate. As you mentioned, every restart they kept moving forward, but because of the situation they were put in, back pit stall, because they had to start by owner's points and they were back there, they were constantly in a position where they were having to battle for every spot.
And a terribly disappointing finish. But pay attention to, for that team needs to pay attention to the positives. They need to say, hey, you know what? All weekend long, we had a car that could compete. Build on that. Don't leave here feeling terrible about what happened. Be disappointed, but build on the positives from the weekend.
We're talking about a positive. This is a positive run for Jamie McMurray in the one. Both Jamie McMurray and his crew chief, Matt McCall, have been very efficient on pit road. And look, with all of these accidents, Jamie McMurray up into the 16th position on the grid. Why he likes that. Think about what a win could do. A win from someone like Jamie McMurray would move up there. They've been efficient on pit road, but he's also passed a lot of cars. Rick really drove himself up into position.
And that's huge, Steve, for this race team to be in that chase grid. As we're seeing on the left-hand side of the screen, you see Kyle Busch go by Jamie McMurray, but they've been having fantastic restarts all evening long. In fact, McMurray at one point said, I'm a lot better than these guys on restarts, but as the run goes on, it just seems like we lose grip, and that's what we're seeing right now with Jamie McMurray. But a nice run for this team. And I tell you what, they would love a top 10 out of this evening, Dave.
Marty talking about negatives started the day for the three of Austin Dillon. Remember, he fell back, and it was some weird issue. He really didn't know what it was. The team was even speculating when he came in. There was so much brake dust in the wheels that he might have been inadvertently dragging his foot on the brake. But that's gone now, and he just radioed to his crew. It's a little bit free into three, but I'm getting good corner exits. Kelly?
Paul Menard in that 27 has worked his way up just outside the top 5. Remember, he was in the chase a year ago, and they have struggled this season. But his crew chief, Justin Alexander, telling me our program is a lot better than we've shown for it, especially in our mile-and-a-half program. But said he was willing to take some risk, go off strategy. Their strategy so far tonight, every time they've come down pit road, been alternating 2 lefts and then 2 right side tires.
And Rick, let's be honest, the 27, Paul Menard, Justin Alexander, I really believe they need to start thinking win. You know, they entered tonight 89 points below the cut line. While that is not insurmountable, they could do it over the summer. That's going to take a string of very good runs. I think the best chance for this car to make the chase is to win a race.
And they've won before in races coming up. The race that they won was Indianapolis, which is just a couple weeks away.
Their strength is consistency, though. That's how they got into the chase last year. They were very consistent. They made very few mistakes. When you take a team like that doesn't lead a lot of laps, doesn't run in the front a lot, and really kind of all of RCR can be grouped into that, and you dig a hole, it's much harder for that kind of team to dig out of it. So they've got to find a way. I agree with you. They got to find a way to put themselves in position to win, or have everybody a race and have a lot of issues. But consistency when you're in a hole is very difficult to get done what you need to get done.
And guys behind them, Greg Biffle also having a nice run. We talked about the confidence and momentum from Roush Fenway with all 3 cars in the top 10 at Daytona last week. On the pit stop before this last pit stop, they took 2 tires. They jumped up into the top 5 at one point, but he's fallen back a little bit since then. Biffle saying the car is getting too tight the longer he runs, and we're seeing that comparison, 2 tires versus 4 tires. Some of these guys took 4 tires earlier, Steve. They haven't been able to make up any ground at all, so track position, again, proving to be very key this evening.
It absolutely has, Marty. Track position is important, and so isn't momentum, it seems like tonight. This team right here didn't start. Greg Biffle, Brian Patty just didn't seem to start on the same page at the beginning of the year, but Daytona sits on the pole, recovers from an on-track issue to finish inside the top 10. We go to a completely different style racetrack in Kentucky, once again running inside the top 10. What a great camera angle inside the car. It pans left to right, really gives you a good idea of the speed these guys are carrying around the racetrack. Last year, you would have saw that helmet banging around over all those bumps, but this year, even though there's still a few little ripples, relatively smooth racetrack.
And I believe this package fits Greg Biffle. He's an aggressive driver. He likes to drive the car sideways, doesn't mind being loose, likes to attack the racetrack. And even though in this package you can't attack the racetrack, you have to have the ability to drive a loose car, a car with very low grip, and I think that's in Greg Biffle's wheelhouse.
Greg Biffle in the top 10, all 3 RCR cars in the top 10. But out in front, it's Stewart-Haas Racing's Kevin Harvick. Let's go down to the Toyota Camry on-track car, Steve.
Yeah, we've heard a lot about in-race aerodynamic adjustments. Well, here at Kentucky, we've seen a lot of side skirts. That's that yellow area right there at the bottom of the door of this car. We see them start to flare out as the race goes on. You know, NASCAR has a rule that you're not allowed to make adjustments on a pit stop, but from what we see, we think they're happening on the racetrack, Jeff.
You see the cars making their way around the track. The 4 of Kevin Harvick still out in front. Its side skirt just a little bit flared out on the bottom, but look at when they're coming off of pit road, it's not flared out.
Yeah, all the side skirts are straight. NASCAR requires them to be straight as they go through tech. But what NASCAR can't do is control what happens once you get on the racetrack. So as the cars travel and hit the racetrack, then they get bent out. So they go through tech and they're legal. See every single car coming off pit road, everybody's side skirts are straight, no problems. But on the racetrack, they bottom out, they travel, and they move. Now, the teams are smart. They're moving in the right direction. But the reason it's not against the rules is because they go through tech and it happens on the racetrack.
And you see right here, as we watch the 42 of Kyle Larson goes through, the left rear makes contact with the racetrack, the skirt comes out. I think some cars are just easier to see. The 7A has a black side skirt. It kind of blends with the racetrack. The 4 has a bright white side skirt on the left side. It really sticks out. You can see it. But when we go through the entire field, it seems to be a pretty consistent trend.
Kevin Harvick out in front of Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Busch. Jamie McMurray has fallen back to 4th. Austin Dillon in the top 5. Kenseth, Menard, Keselowski, Biffle, and Newman, the top 10. Dave.
Rick, the last time Kyle Busch was down pit road, they took left side tires, and the car was very ill handling. In fact, he could have been that big wreck.
I missed the corner because as soon as I let off the gas, it jumped sideways on me. I had probably 10 degrees of steering wheel to the right. I can't get off the gas and get in the corner whatsoever. Just on the straightaway, it's spinning out. All right, not worth wrecking, I know that. But it ain't worth getting back there either.
So you can hear the angst in the driver's voice. What do we do? Do we come down and put on 4 tires next time and lose a track position? I might need, that kind of a balance, but it's a really tough decision to go and do that, Kelly.
Dave, during that last lengthy caution, Brad Keselowski and his spotter Joey Meyer took the opportunity to really discuss the lines that he's taking and the drivers around him.
Got to cover the yellow. Tires are on the black underneath the yellow. No, they're below the yellow line with their left. From what I can see up here, they're well below the yellow line. Covered now. They're on the left side of the yellow line.
And then Brad followed that by saying, I don't know if that's still going to work anymore. Just a handful of laps ago, Joey Meyer saying, hey, your 1 and 2 will look better than anyone else around you. Go get that car in front of you.
45 laps since Kevin Harvick and Martin Truex Jr. were on pit road, and the fuel window upwards of 60 laps. We've been on about a 26-lap green flag run. It's been the longest of the day as we have completed 128 laps, currently on 129 of 267.
And we've seen issues, we feel like we've seen issues where people are having to use their brakes, getting their brakes hot, melting beads on tires. This is when you start to have issues. The longer the runs are, the more you have to use the brake, the more you have to slow the car down, the more the heat gets into the wheel and won't leave the wheel. So the drivers really need to be careful right here not to use the brake anymore than you have to.
Up at the top of your screen, you'll see the speed of the leader, and that is Kevin Harvick, all the way down to about 147 miles an hour through turns 3 and 4, but he gets back up to nearly 200 miles an hour when he gets into turn 1.
I think this is interesting. As you catch a slower car, it pulls the downforce off of your car. Getting through lap traffic with this package, I think is going to be really, really important.
We've seen cars spin out already with just one car on their outside. And that time Regan Smith moved to the outside so that Harvick could move by. Martin Truex Jr. trying to do the same thing. Dave.
Rick, the balance on the 4 car tonight has really been fairly drivable for Kevin, and that's what they worked on in final practice. When I talked to crew chief Rodney Childers this morning, he said we didn't get really worked up about our lack of top-of-the-board speed during practice. Kevin said, just make the car drivable, and I'll be fine. That's what's happened so far, and that drivability and survivability apparently are very good. He still leads.
Harvick, the 40-year-old out of Bakersfield, California, still out front, has led the most laps, 91 laps and counting. Now 92 for Harvick. And the gap between the top 2, about 0.2 of a second, separating Harvick and Truex Jr. Pit window, as I mentioned, earlier between 60 and 67 laps, 64 to 67, the pit window on the top of your screen. And look at the gap between the top two, 120 feet. I want to take a look at the Toyota driver update. Martin Truex Jr. currently running second. Kyle Busch is third. Matt Kenseth sixth. Martin Truex Jr. has been so impressive on mile-and-a-half tracks this year. Got the huge win at Charlotte to give him a spot in the chase grid. Kyle Busch also with multiple wins on the season, also in the chase as we go NASCAR nonstop. And welcome back as very close racing between Kevin Harvick and Martin Truex Jr. And here comes the 41. Marty.
Kurt Busch pitting a little bit early in this cycle. That could mean that everybody else will follow him down pit road. A little short pitting call here by Tony Gibson. Kurt said he was, quote, sideways loose out there. So fairly big air pressure adjustment and 4 Goodyear tires for Kurt Busch. We'll see if this starts a trend for everybody else coming to pit road, Rick.
First to come on to pit road for green flag pit stops. And normally starts a trend.
Yeah, it does. And we heard all weekend long about tires needed to be scuffed. Goodyear recommended, but those were 4 sticker tires I saw going to the 41. So Tony Gibson must have a feeling that he wants to have stickers on this car.
Kevin Harvick about to put the 10 of Danica Patrick a lap down. She's running 21st. 21 cars on the lead lap. Martin Truex Jr. still about 0.4 of a second behind race leader Kevin Harvick. Marty.
And here comes Kyle Larson. Remember, he was involved in that accident a little bit earlier. They did check them. Damage on the nose is not too bad, but I tell you what, when he came in, you could see those brake rotors glowing for Kyle Larson. It's going to be 4 tires. You're going to see a wedge adjustment as well. He was tight in 1 and 2, loose in 3 and 4, so that's how they're going to fix that. Also an air pressure adjustment as well.
So it started with Kurt Busch. Now Kyle Larson has come to pit road. Green flag pit stops are beginning to cycle through. 6 of Trevor Bayne has made his way onto pit road. Race leader Kevin Harvick was able to get by the 10. Kelly.
And Trevor Bayne also making his way down pit road. He's been struggling with a car that's mostly been loose off of turn 4 and loose through the centers on both ends of the racetrack. You see it's going to be a 4-tire change for Trevor Bayne, an air pressure adjustment. Marty?
Carl Edwards coming down pit road, Kelly. That took 4 tires on that last stop, so that kind of mired them back in some traffic. And he said, I don't know what to tell you, to his crew chief Dave Rogers. Once you're back here, you just can't go anywhere. So 4 tires here. He said it also chatters the nose into turn 3 and the left side splitter a little too low as well. Eric Almirola on pit road. He's been struggling with a race car that's been a little bit too loose towards the end of this run. Air pressure change for those guys and 4 tires as well.
Saw a little bit of a fire there in the right front. A lot of heat in the brakes here, Marty.
And Jamie McMurray coming to pit road as the cavalcade of early pit stop guys keep coming. Jamie McMurray a little bit too tight towards the end of that run, especially off of turn 4, he said. 4 tires for those guys, Kelly.
Paul Menard also on pit road. He said he's been really tight off, and it feels like the front end is giving up. They've been going 2 tires. This time around, it'll be 4 tires and a wedge adjustment for Paul Menard, Marty.
Kelly, for the first time all night long, Cole Pearn making the call to take left side tires here for Martin Truex Jr. It's going to be a 4-tire change for that team. No adjustments, though. Truex very happy with the chassis, Dave.
About 5 laps ago, Kyle Busch calmly came on the radio and said, just a little too loose for me right there. So they'll just make a minor adjustment. You see the wedge wrench in the rear window now on his race car. 4 tires for Kyle. Meanwhile, on pit road, the leader, Kevin Harvick. You see the signs flashing, and we'll go to Dale Earnhardt Jr. first.
And Dale saying, I need to roll through the center better. They gave him 4 tires and made an air pressure adjustment to help him with his handling.
Kelly, you see the 4 of Kevin Harvick crossing over now, coming to his pits. He overshot his pits. It'll be a longer stop for him. They put the fuel can in, but they have to roll the car back so he can legally pit. 4 tires going on now. He said the balance was just a little bit tighter longer, but that will cost him, Kelly.
Brad Keselowski said his car was getting tighter with every lap, but that it was better, especially on restarts. They made a chassis adjustment and 4 tires for Brad Keselowski.
And a big mistake for the 4 team. Austin Dillon also on pit road in the 3. Dave.
And Austin said it was, as he was saying, the car was getting better. It was a little tight through 1 and 2 at the very end of the run there. So they will take 4 tires for that Chevrolet and give him just an air pressure adjustment to try to fix that. Mike?
Matt Kenseth has taken 4 tires only once this evening. We'll do it again here, but they've taken right sides most stops. The car has been a little bit skaty on restarts. That's what he said last time. They're going to try to tighten them up with a bit of an air pressure adjustment and Sunoco race fuel along with those 4 Goodyear tires.
So a big issue for Matt Kenseth. We'll see how bad that affects him when he comes back out onto the racetrack and everyone cycles through. Right now, Danica Patrick scored as the race leader. Ty Dillon running second. Ty was involved in the incident earlier. Matt Kenseth third. Martin Truex Jr. is 4th on the scoring chart. We see Kurt Busch going by the 10 of Danica Patrick. Again, Danica scored as the race leader. Currently on the lead lap. There are 25 cars. Kurt Busch just in front of the 10 of Danica Patrick, and Kurt Busch running 25th.
We saw Kevin Harvick coming in, did not get stopped in time. Really didn't have, you can see way back, he just wasn't coming in at the right angle. It makes me wonder, we've talked about brakes the entire race and how you're using probably more brake than you thought. It makes me wonder if the car didn't slow down like he anticipated it. When your brakes are hot and you come on pit road, they do not work as well. And I wonder if just he wasn't slowed down as much as he thought the car would slow down. Kelly?
And now Danica Patrick has made her way down to pit road. Her car was loose earlier, but then they hit on something. She said in 3 and 4, it turns like a race car should. It is magic. She's happy with her car now, and they're going to make a little chassis adjustment, though, and give her 4 tires and Sunoco fuel.
The damage to the front of the 10. Had some contact earlier and a smoker in turn 4. Someone got up into the wall, it looks like. That's the 7 of Regan Smith. Hard contact with the right side as the caution has come out. Quite a few of the green flag pit stops had cycled through. That put Martin Truex Jr. back up front. Kyle Busch was running second. And hard contact by Regan Smith.
He had yet to bend the pit road, Rick. That was 51 laps since the last time he was on pit road. You see him here at the top of the screen entering turn 3 at the bottom of the racetrack. Oh, you see something come off the car. I would assume either something broke or the tire went down. That looked actually like a piece of the hood flap. When the right front tire pops, usually it's a pretty big explosion. It takes that cowl flap or hood flap and the hood blows it out of the car, and then much like we saw with the 22 earlier, just a long straight ride up to the fence.
That was a big impact. The angle where he hit, I mean, he just hit at a really hard angle. That was a much bigger impact than we saw, say, Joey Logano's.
Yeah. The centrifugal force that these cars make as they're going through the center of the turn is at its highest, and they're leaning very hard on those right side tires to keep that car going around the turn.
They are, Rick, but I think Jeff pointed this out earlier and he was dead on the money. I really think brake use is higher than we expected, and that has something to do with some of these tire issues we're seeing.
We'll go to commercial break, be right back to Kentucky. NASCAR on NBCSN is brought to you by Sprint, proud sponsor of the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, and by KFC's Extra Crispy Chicken. It's extra crispy good. Welcome back to NASCAR Sprint Cup Series racing presented by KFC from Kentucky Speedway. And a gorgeous view of this 1.5-mile track, repaved and reconfigured since the last time the Cup Series was on this track, even the Xfinity Series in late fall of last year. Interesting, we've had another tire failure, it looks like, as we saw the 7 get into the wall. Take a look at the brakes, though. Jeff, you've been talking about this.
Yeah, I see the left front rotor's just glowing on the 88. That means the right front's glowing also. This is a 1.5-mile racetrack, Steve. This isn't what you expect when you come to a 1.5 miles. You don't think you're going to have to use this much brake, and you can see what happens with the 42 car.
Yeah, as the 42 pits thinks these are white wheels in this 42 car this week, as the right front tire changer pulls the tire off, I want you to see all that black dust that comes pouring out of the wheel. That is brake pad. That is used brake pad built up. That looks like we're at Martinsville or Richmond, not a 1.5-mile racetrack. But you know, Jeff, we talked about the smaller spoiler. I really think the lack of downforce is attributing this higher brake usage.
You see the straightaway speeds are so high, you gotta slow them down. Low downforce, it's just, you gotta slow them down. So all that heat is going right into the tire.
Let's go back into the infield and Rutledge Wood.
Rick, this is a great time to kind of point out some of the crazy things that are happening down here on pit road with the teams. Right now, I'm over in Martin Truex Jr.'s pit box. Big Tuna's working on the gas. He's a gas man. Right now, this is where after a pit stop, all the teams are working on right now. The tire changers greasing his gun. You can see up here, they've got everything they need from all of their tools. This is their total command center. So they're keeping track, obviously, of their own lap times, all their adjustments. Plus, they're keeping track of all the data, and they watch the race up here. But I counted 20 people down here, 13 people on top, in about a 15 by 20 area, 33 people on this team. Everyone's got a job. Everyone's working hard down here, Rick.
A lot of people go into making a race team successful.
That was my home away from home, Rick.
Let's talk about restarts.
And we've seen the outside line be the preferred line so far. Well, watch Kevin Harvick as he gets into the corner. He moves down and he gets really close to the 2 car. What that does is it pulls the air off the 2 car. See the 2 car wiggle, loses momentum, and Harvick's able to get going by.
Yeah, and that's a move we've seen Kevin Harvick do a couple of times. He did it right there to Martin Truex in the 78. Just a perfect example of, look at the 78. As soon as that fork gets there, the downforce is going to the 78 up the racetrack, ends up losing the position to the 18 and Kyle Busch as well.
Have to use the tools available to you. And when you take this downforce away, it gives the drivers a chance to mess with the other cars. It gives a chance to pull the air out of the other cars, and you have to use anything you can to get an advantage.
And you drivers do just that. Get your NASCAR coverage when you're on the go with NASCAR Mobile. The official app of NASCAR puts race coverage and live in-car cameras right at your fingertips. You can also listen to the drivers and teams discuss race strategy. Download for free at NASCAR.com/mobile. Casey Mears running 31st, and they had an issue very early in this race where they had to go back into the garage and make a repair to that car. Mears currently scored 20 laps down to the field, and Regan Smith has been checked and released from the infield care center. Want to make you aware of that. Martin Truex Jr. and Kyle Busch making up row number 1. Martin Truex Jr. on the outside, Kyle Busch on the inside. Fans waving the green flags in the grandstands as they go 2 by 2 into turn 1. Sparks flying off the 18. Martin Truex Jr. with the momentum on the outside. He'll take the lead and hang on to it. Kevin Harvick with a good restart. Moves up to 3rd. Jamie McMurray trying to hold on to 4th. Here comes Matt Kenseth into 20. 3 wide as they cross the finish line.
Kyle Larson went all the way to the top in 3 and 4 to gain those positions. Right here he is entering turn 1, getting back to the bottom. He's had a fast car all night, but he's back in the traffic a little bit more than he's been. We'll see if he can recover and work his way back to the front.
Fighting for positions on the restart. Very important. Track position so important tonight in Kentucky. On the repave and reconfiguration of this racetrack. Only 3 drivers have ever been able to win at this track. Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, Matt Kenseth. Right now, Martin Truex Jr. out in front of the field. There's Jamie McMurray just in front of Brad Keselowski. McMurray has been able to race his way up to the front, but then not be able to hang on to that position on the restarts.
And you saw right there, Brad was able to
Oh, around goes to 15. Clint Boyer sideways, and the caution will come out.
Shy right there. If you don't have a flat, stay out on the apron. I think I do have a flat.
Boyer was running 26th when he went around.
Your rights are up, Clint.
Scored 1 lap down to the field. 48 back out on track after their crash.
You heard the spotter say if you don't have any flats, stay out. If you don't have any flats, you want to stay out so you don't go a lap down. 15 underneath the 10 of Danica Patrick. He's already sideways. Now he's trying to chase it up the racetrack. He's just loose underneath her. Did a really good job of staying off of her. I mean, he really did. She did a nice job of maintaining her pace, and it's along for the ride at this point.
And that's what you had just discussed. That
look at the rotor glowing in the front, though.
Yep.
See, I'm sorry, it's not the rotor glowing. That's a mark on the wheel.
Getting to the side of a car, though, and that's what happened with Danica Patrick. Just was on the outside of the 15, takes that air off of the spoiler, and around goes to 15.
He's also compromised. You can see they were pretty much 3 wide, so he entered very shallow, meaning he had to turn early, getting into the corner. And on top of that, he had all the downforce being taken off of the car, and just came around on him.
And the free pass goes to the 10 of Danica Patrick. So Danica Patrick will be back on the lead lap.
Sometimes it's good to almost be in a wreck.
26th.
Almost, I think, is the key word.
That is.
You want to be almost in a wreck.
Martin Truex Jr. out front. Martin Truex Jr. has led 31 laps tonight. Kevin Harvick has led the most up to this point at 105 laps led. Past the halfway point, 106 laps to go tonight to get to the 400 miles. Scheduled for tonight's race, Martin Truex Jr. so dominant on 1.5 miles that he's out front at Kentucky as we go NASCAR nonstop. Next week, NASCAR is on NBCSN from Loudon, New Hampshire. On Saturday, future stars of NASCAR will hit the track in the Xfinity Series. That coverage beginning at 3:30. 5:30 Eastern. On Sunday, it's a Sprint Cup Series racing. That race coverage starts at 1 p.m. Dale Earnhardt Jr. breaking back into the top 10 and shutting the engine off. And firing it back up again. Dave.
Well, Rick, you know, when you come to a track, you want to meet some of the locals, right? Well, you also want to find out what crew members come from the area. So when I found out that Getty Cabot, the jackman for Tony Stewart, was from Owensboro, I looked him up, and I found out that he was a football player before he was a guy on pit road slinging a jack for the 14 car at Stewart-Haas Racing. He played for Western Kentucky University, was a fullback and then an outside linebacker, and actually went to the 1AA National Championship when they won that in 2002. I think McNeese State got beat that year. So I thought, well, after I looked him up, why not just have him give me an autograph as well? So I had him sign my Surface.
Did he use a permanent marker?
No, that is the pen that you use on the Microsoft
good.
Surface. So yeah, and then I'll save it and I'll frame it somewhere.
I love it. Always searching for the autographs down there, Dave, aren't you?
You know, listen, I'm a fan.
Lights are out on the pace truck. Martin Truex Jr. choosing the outside line once again. Kyle Busch on the inside. Making row 2. Kevin Harvick, Matt Kenseth, Edwards, and McMurray making up row 3. Row 4. Austin Dillon, Brad Keselowski. Row 5, Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Paul Menard. Pace truck off the track. Fans waving the green flags once again in the grandstands as they come back to Thank Smoke restart zone. Green flag back in the air. Around goes the 78, or at least on the outside of the 18. And once again, that move works. The outside line definitely working as the 4 now of Kevin Harvick makes the inside line and pass on Kyle Busch. So Kevin Harvick moves up to 2nd. Matt Kenseth trying to get by Kyle Busch as well, as Busch has continued to run that outside line from 3 and 4 and now into 1 and 2. Drivers out of Wisconsin, one of them being Matt Kenseth from Cambridge, Wisconsin. 44-year-old trying to get by Kyle Busch, and he will make the pass complete. Paul Menard, the other driver from Wisconsin. Truex Jr. has about a half a second lead now on Kevin Harvick. Carl Edwards making the move by the 1 of Jamie McMurray. McMurray, after being up front quite a bit this evening, has dropped back just inside the top 10, running 8.
As we watch that, the 16 of Greg Biffle took the 3 and the 27 3 wide down the front stretch, got 2 positions.
Greg Biffle looking back in the battle behind him between Paul Menard and Austin Dillon. Dillon using that inside line to get by Paul Menard. And now under 100 laps to go.
We've been talking about how you can use your car to affect other people's car. Well, on that last restart, we saw a really good example of that. Look at Kevin Harvick behind the 18. As the 78 gets close to the 18 gets loose. Now watch the 4. He continues to advance. As he's advancing, he's making the 18 even looser. So he saw a weakness with the 18. He was already loose. He pushed the issue, took the air off the 18, and got that position. That's using all your tools. You have to do that with this package. It's why the drivers like the package. In the old package, if you got behind somebody, you were just stuck. You couldn't do anything. You had such a disadvantage because all the air was off your car. Now you can take the air off of their car and give the trailing car an advantage.
Kevin Harvick has led 105 laps. Martin Truex Jr. continuing to lead as A.J. Allmendinger coming back out on the track has major damage to the front end of that car. The hood has flown up over the windshield, and the caution will come out again. 47 of A.J. Allmendinger was involved in a crash earlier this evening, and a very disappointed driver.
Remember, he's one of those drivers toward the end of the cut line trying to get in the chase. Very upset. I don't blame him. Work hard to try to drive these race cars. When things don't go well, it's very frustrating.
And as difficult as it is, the rule is the drivers are supposed to stay in their cars until the safety crew gets to them. But
see, he may have hurt his hand. You know, he was looking at his hand. He was shaking his hand. And things don't go well, and you get hurt. It really makes you mad.
Frustration very high for A.J. Allmendinger.
It was already 68 laps down. Looks like maybe the repair they attempted didn't hold. Maybe the hood is up. Not sure if the hood came up before he had an accident or the hood coming up was the cause of the accident.
Let's look, see if we can see what happened. This is in the front stretch.
Saw a lot of smoke out of the car before it hit the wall, and then the hood comes up. You know, it's really hard to say. You never know when you have to do that much repair. Like I mentioned, 68 laps down. You don't know if that smoke was tire smoke or an oil line or an issue, but definitely something amiss with the 47 car.
These teams try so hard to get the car fixed after you've been into a wreck. They don't want to send a driver out there and drive something dangerous, but it's just so hard to get all the damage fixed, and sometimes something will fail.
And entering tonight's race, A.J. Allmendinger was only 16 points behind the cut line, behind that 16th position, which everyone is shooting for to get into the chase. Be in the top 16. A.J. Allmendinger out for the evening. Tonight on NBCSN, following race coverage. Stay tuned for the NASCAR America post-race show presented by Advanced Auto Parts, and that will be followed by NASCAR Victory Lap. Who will be in victory lane at the end of 267 laps in Kentucky? We're 93 laps away from finding out. Only 3 drivers have won at this racetrack in the Sprint Cup Series. Can someone add their name to that list? Right now, Martin Truex Jr., Kevin Harvick. Those two running 1 and 2 have not won at Kentucky before. Kevin Harvick has never finished in the top 5 at this racetrack.
Last time I rigged, the pits were open and there was a few decisions made. Most of the leaders stayed out, but the 43 of Eric Almirola pitted from the 16th position. It's an interesting strategy. The leaders are staying out, trying to get to their final pit window around lap 200, but they've used about half a tank of gas. They're using these cautions to save some gas to get to that pit window. But the 43 came to pit road, put some fuel in the car, use this opportunity to get off sequence with the leaders. If we get a timely caution 15, 18 laps from now, it might put the 43 in a good position. Even if they do pit, they're going to need so little fuel that they should be able to gain a lot of those spots back.
We see the 13 of Casey Mears coming to pit road. We have seen a lot of cautions. As we look at the cautions tonight presented by Sprint, 10 cautions already. The track record is 11. Switch today and save 50% on most Verizon, AT&T, or mobile rates. Visit a Sprint store or sprint.com/network today. So you're thinking we may get to that record?
Dale Jr., how hard he was working his tires, trying to get heat in the tires so that on this restart he has the most possible grip. That's why these cars, the drivers, they're swerving so hard. You just want those tires ready to fire because we see how important restarts are. If you can get a little more heat in those tires, it'll stick just a little bit better.
Dave.
Tony Stewart pitted the last 2 cautions because, one, they don't have really anything to lose. All the guys that are racing in points now have crashed. And secondly, on that last one, they thought they ran through some debris. And just to make sure, Bugaravich said, I'd kick myself if we didn't pit him, and we got a flat. They changed 4 tires. 600th
start for Tony Stewart. And only one driver has ever won on their 600th start. That is the king, Richard Petty. Tony Stewart, a big win at Sonoma earlier this year. As we get ready for the restart. Back to racing in Kentucky. All the way down to the apron. Carl Edwards trying to get by the 2. One thing you have to do is make sure you stay in line until you get to the start-finish line. And I believe Carl Edwards did that before he dove down to the bottom of the track. As you see Kevin Harvick making the inside line work, a big wiggle out of Martin Truex Jr. and Harvick is back out front.
That's the first time we've seen the inside line work on a restart. Another car that got a good restart was the 42 of Kyle Larson. Restarted in the 6th, he's all the way up to the 4th position.
And now Brad Keselowski able to get back by the 19 of Carl Edwards as the 16 of Greg Biffle is now working to the inside of the 19. Brad Keselowski keeping the momentum up, trying to get by the 1 of Jamie McMurray now. And in front of them, 2 wide, Matt Kenseth goes by Kyle Larson. Keselowski able to make the pass. Keselowski up to 6th. Kevin Harvick so strong, now continues to lead as far as in the category of laps led, 107 and counting. 89 laps to go. Kevin Harvick out front has a 4/10 of a second lead over Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Busch, Matt Kenseth, Kyle Larson, the top 5.
Eric, we just mentioned Eric Almirola pitted this last time. He's already came back up. He pitted from 16th, lost some track position. He's up to the 14th position. See closing in on the 5 of Casey Kane.
Eric Almirola, native of Tampa, Florida.
See, both cars wiggle right there. The 43 took the air off the 5, but in doing it, he took the air off himself, too. It hurt the 5 more than it hurt the 43, but they have both had big wiggles getting to the corner.
Ryan Newman capitalized on that in the Cat 31. Newman able to get by Casey Kane.
And Rick, this is what you need as a crew chief. When you decide to do something different, Trent Owens called the 43 down pit road, put some tires on it, put some fuel in, get off sequence. He has to have commitment from his driver to gain that track position back. We saw the 34 earlier, lose track position, get in an accident. The risk for the 43 was to get stuck in the back of the pack, but Eric is doing a great job fighting hard, gaining those positions back.
Closing in on the 88s of Dale Earnhardt Jr., Eric Almirola moving toward the front. Tony Stewart will by the 11 of Denny Hamlin.
And we haven't seen the speed from the 11 car that I thought we would see today. They just haven't had typical Joe Gibbs racing speed. Haven't not been able to make a contention for the top 5, much less the lead. So just not the speed at 11, I would have thought.
And he was one of those drivers earlier today that talked about how he thought the track was going to be very narrow. And while we have seen that in 3 and 4, 1 and 2 is a little wider than I think Denny Hamlin expected. That tells me that maybe his car wasn't as good in practice as some of these other drivers, because we heard other drivers talk about they thought they would have an opportunity. Kevin Harvick from the drive of the green flag was running the second groove in 1 and 2.
With just 85 laps to go, let's go through the field. Brought to you by Hardee's. Let's start with Dave.
Rick, only one mistake tonight for Kevin Harvick and a lot of good saves out there. Remember when he overshot his pit on pit road and they had to back up the car? Kevin radioed to apologize to the crew, and then he said, I was looking up in my rear view mirror to make sure that no one was sliding down to the inside of me or coming around to me. It was a safety procedure, but it cost him, Marty.
Dave Martin Truex Jr. back in the second position. When I talked to Cole Pearn, his crew chief, earlier today, he told me, you know what, we need to get back into the mode of top fives. Sure, I would love a couple wins before the chase, but you've got to be in that mode, because if you get top fives in the chase, you'll make it to Homestead, Miami with a shot to win the title, Dave.
Marty, this weekend drivers have taken different approaches to Kentucky. Tony Hirschman is the spotter for Kyle Busch. He told me that Kyle actually enters turn 3 a little bit flatter, and that has benefited him as far as speed goes, Mike.
You know, when the low downforce package was most recently used in Michigan, the 20 car struggled. Crew chief Jason Ratcliffe said the car just wasn't very good. They came with a different philosophy this time. The car's been much more predictable in traffic, and Kenseth likes it. He enjoys the balance now, Kelly.
Brad Keselowski started on the front row, back inside the top 5. He has 3 wins already this season. Looking forward to more. He said this summer stretch is going to define our team's capabilities, because we know it's some of our best tracks. They're looking for more wins to carry momentum into the chase, Marty.
Kelly, Kyle Larson in the 6th position. Everyone said pre-race he was the man to beat. They finally made their way into the top 10. Been struggling with a tight race car, and they said the reason they've been so good this weekend, their teammate Jamie McMurray, who tested here, they unloaded with this setup. That helped. Carl Edwards has been very frustrated with track position all evening long, trying to get back up through the field. They've had a fast car this evening, but have not been able to make the progress that they would like to make. And Greg Biffle, we've talked about the terrific run for the Roush cars. Once again, he's in the top 10. He's in the 8th position. He told me this morning the biggest part of our program that needs to improve right here, intermediate racetracks, Dave.
When I caught up with Austin Dillon this afternoon, I asked him how practice was. He said, well, I was good at both ends of the track, but never at the same time. But I believe in my guys and the adjustments they're going to make, and they've given him a good race car tonight, Kelly.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. rounding out the top 10. He had struggled in practice, and he had struggled throughout the early stages of this race, nearly wrecking at one point. The Gray guys and team have gone to work, and now Dale's pretty happy with his car. He's been racing and able to move forward. Right behind him is Paul Menard. We talked about the fact that he was in the chase a year ago, now way on the outside looking in. Mentality now, we're wide open. The team said we're going to do everything we can for a win. Consistency is kind of out the door at this point, Marty.
Eric Almirola continuing to move forward, Kelly. He restarted 17th with those 4 fresh tires. That was the call, and they have moved forward up to the 12th position. The car for most of the evening been a little bit loose, Kelly, but pretty good on this run right now.
Ryan Newman, another chase contender from last year, says they're just not happy with their point situation, but they feel like they've been gaining consistency and momentum, especially within the last month. They think they're getting closer to a win, and now he's getting closer to getting into that top 10, Dave.
Tony Stewart's crew chief Mike Buckaravich told me the handling has been on the knife edge all weekend, but Tony's been doing a good job this evening, and as I said before, running for points and keeping his points position, Marty.
Dave, this has been a free fall for Jamie McMurray in about the last 3 laps. He just radioed to Matt McCall. I think I may have hurt a tire or something, because they have lost 5 spots in about 4 laps going backwards for Jamie McMurray, Mike.
Casey Kane told me earlier today that when they unloaded this weekend, he felt like he had the worst car in the field. The team kept working on it, and finally it's come to life. At one point, he was running inside the top 10. He's faded a little bit right now, running 16. Marty?
Dave, Denny Hamlin, of course, won the Daytona 500 earlier this year. I asked his crew chief, Mike Wheeler, are you still in R&D mode? He said, a little bit, but we're doing less of that. Not because we're getting closer to the chase, but mostly because we've run through the list of things that we want to try. That's what happens when you win the first race of the season, Kelly.
Matt Husha, Trevor Bain's crew chief, told me that this has been a really difficult week, and they just haven't been able to find speed. But on the season as a whole, the whole organization has. And he said with that, now we're really being able to make some targeted goals and marks. We're not just throwing darts at the board anymore, and we're looking to see that in results, Marty.
Kelly, for Kurt Busch, it has been a struggle of track position all evening long. Remember, they started 39th in that backup car. They have not been able to make up their way forward unless when they made that call earlier, they kept him out. That was very helpful, but since then, they have not been able to get out of this hole. They're running in 19th right now with a race car that is very loose. For Landon Castle, what a nice run for this race team. They're running in 20th right now. They've been dealing with a race car that's been a little too loose all evening long, but keeping it up there with a nice effort in the top 20.
You mentioned trying to keep it pointed the right direction. How about this save for Landon Castle?
Oh, that's close. same thing. You know, just underneath another car, did a nice job of staying off, but a little bit of contact, not bad. Marty?
And as we talked about Jamie McMurray having a tire issue, he talked to Matt McCall for a couple of laps. He said, I think I have an issue. Let me feel it out. And then he rode for a couple more laps. He said, guys, I got to come in. Something is definitely wrong. We're going to go check, see which tire it might have been.
And just outside of the pit window, I mentioned that you could go maybe 67 laps, a little bit early for Jamie McMurray. As we go NASCAR nonstop. And we're not going to go NASCAR nonstop because the 38 gets into the wall. Landon Castle, after that save that we just watched, he was running 19th.
Taking the paint off the sidewall here. We got the fence there off the 2 with the right side.
Got the fence pretty hard. For Landon Castle, flat-sided the whole right side of that car. And a good run for Landon Castle in the top 20. And that will tie the track record for most cautions, and we still have 73 laps to go.
Yeah, Rick, and that's a little outside of the fuel window we mentioned at the top of the show. We were thinking about 65 to 67 laps, but I expect all the leaders to come to pit road, and only 5 laps short of their window. I expect to see some cars shutting off when they leave pit road and saving under caution. This could be the last time we see the leaders on pit road tonight.
Take another look at what happened with Landon. Already up into the wall, top of your screen.
I'm not sure what started that, but obviously we saw him in trouble earlier. I don't know if potentially when he got next to the car beside him, if maybe he cut a tire, cut a sidewall or something. Really hard to tell, but I wonder what does Amarola, what does that team do on this stop? Tony Stewart, they're on the same strategy. Trevor Bain, they're on the same strategy. Do they stay out? Do they do no tires? They just do fuel? We saw them pit a little while ago. How can they use pit earlier to their advantage now, Steve?
Well, there's so few of cars on that strategy. I don't know if they can stay out. I think we've seen old tires not be able to hold up to the new tires. So I expect to see them on pit road, but their options are definitely open. They need less gas, maybe only fresh right side tires, and a much shorter stop with less fuel, Mike.
And Matt Kenseth's biggest concern, he's been a little bit tight center off. Needs to be a little bit more free in order to execute passes. The team will make a right side tire change here, upper left-hand side of your corner. That's where you see the 20 car and the team going to work. Right side tires only on that car, Marty.
Mike, as Steve mentioned, just barely outside the window, but they told Martin Truex Jr. right side tires and 1 can only, and he was out in a hurry. 6.4, Dave.
Right sides for third place Kyle Busch, left sides for leader Kevin Harvick. 2 different strategies, both designed to get him off pit road as quick as possible.
And it looks like all these teams are banking on another caution because they couldn't have got the fuel cells full with that short of pit stops. Martin Truex Jr. gains a spot. still under caution, getting ready for the restart. NASCAR America, weeknights at 6. And Brad Keselowski will be a guest this week on NASCAR America. The 78 is doing a pass-through penalty right now because of passing on the inside on pit road. Look at how he passes the 4 here.
So he's using the pit lines to his advantage, the speed lines to his advantage, and he used it too much to his advantage. You can't make it that obvious. He accelerated, went past the 4 car. We see this every week. We see the car that can take advantage of the speed lines, he will accelerate because he go into time zones. You can see each one of these red lines is a time zone. You go from one line to the other. So there was no way he could speed on pit road. When he got to the line, he took off, he accelerated, but he passed the 4 car in doing so. That's why the penalty.
And guys, obviously Cole Pern was not very happy with that. He said, but I don't know how to argue with the NASCAR officials, so they did serve the penalty. When they came down pit road, though, you guys all noticed nobody filled up completely. They're all banking on another caution. Cole Pern did fill up his car completely, put on left side tires. We'll see if that plays to their advantage. Martin Truex Jr. will restart 22nd here, trying to make his way back up to the front of the field.
We see that every week, but we don't see it that blatant. We don't see him to pull that far ahead of the car that's on the outside.
Kevin Harvick on the outside, Matt Kenseth on the inside, racing once again in the Bluegrass State. Brad Keselowski working the outside line. He'll take second away from Matt Kenseth. Harvick, Keselowski, Kenseth, Edwards, the top 4. Now Kyle Busch making the move to the inside. Harvick way up the racetrack. Brad Keselowski takes the lead away.
Keselowski pulled right up behind Harvick, took the air off his spoiler. Harvick had to turn right so he could spin it out.
There we just saw the 20 of Matt Kenseth use the apron as he was going through the front stretch and into turn 1. Here comes Kyle Larson in the 42. He's going to try to get by the 18 of Kyle Busch.
Yeah, 19 of Carl Edwards trying.
Oh, and a little loose there for Kyle Larson. He has to catch it. Here comes Carl Edwards. Kyle Larson had to catch his breath as well as that 42. Now on the outside of the 31 of Ryan Newman. He's got his work cut out for him to try to gain those spots back.
And we've seen those moves all night long. Drivers having to catch their car. That's only going to get worse in these closing laps where drivers are going to continue to push harder and harder with 66 to go.
Eric Almirola in the 43, just in front of the 3. And now Paul Menard looking to the inside of Austin Dillon. Remember, this track was repaved since last fall, but we're still seeing a few bumps on the track, so not a perfectly smooth repave, Steve.
Yeah, and I think that's great. You know, when we talk about repaves, we want it to be smooth, we want it to have a different surface, but Kentucky's always been known for a little bit of content, some roughness, some bumps, and even with the repave, they still have a few of those, and I think that's great for racing and increases the difficulty for the crew chiefs and the drivers.
And it wasn't only a repave, it was a reconfiguration. They changed turns 1 and 2, and I know a lot of people, when you say you reconfigure a racetrack, they'll say, well, okay, so the guys who have won here before, they don't have an advantage. But right now, the 3 guys who have won here before, all are running in the top 4.
Dillon trying to fight on the outside, tried to pull down, take the air off the 41, wasn't able to do it. Went way up the racetrack.
Good run for Tony Stewart in the 14. In a 600th start, Tony Stewart has moved up to 12.
And guys, he pitted later than most the last time, so when he came down pit road this time and they took on right side tires, they only had to put the 1 can of fuel in to top it off, so he is good to go on fuel.
And that will be impressive if he's able to stretch it, because when the green flag came out, there was about 68, 69 laps to go, and a big bobble there for Casey Kane.
Yeah, a big bobble, but Casey Kane gets into the left rear tire of the 11. The 11 goes up the racetrack, and the 11's lost a few spots since then.
11 falling back. Stewart Haas Racing, Kurt Busch and Tony Stewart running nose to tail now.
We saw in that restart, we saw Keselowski make a move and get by Harvick for the lead. Watch the 2-car pull right up behind the 4-car, gets really close to him. That pulls the air off the car. Kevin Harvick can do nothing but chase it up the racetrack. Brad takes advantage of it.
Jeff, you can see just how loose he was. He said, I was about to wreck it, so loose. And by the way, Kevin Harvick is about 4 laps short on fuel if he does maximum saving.
Yeah, and I think that's what he'll do. I think Kevin Harvick is one of the best in the business at saving fuel. He practiced saving fuel a great deal. He'll take time during practice sometimes just to understand how much fuel he's burning. And I think right now, if he's thinking fuel is important, he will be saving, and he's really good at it.
Paul Menard in front of Kurt Busch. Again, a backup car for Kurt Busch tonight. Final practice, wrecking the primary. Kurt Busch running strong, running 11th. Kevin Harvick trying to chase down Matt Kenseth after losing the lead. Brad Keselowski out front, Matt Kenseth is second, Harvick third.
Steve, I think that example we just showed with the 4-car and the 2-car, that is why the drivers like this package. If you go back and think about last year, if Keselowski would have done that and run behind the 4, the only thing that would have happened was Keselowski would have run up the racetrack because his car would have gotten so tight behind another car. That's why these drivers like this smaller package, because when you're behind somebody, you can force tempo, you can make something happen. It's not a huge disadvantage to be behind someone.
Brad Keselowski has really been making a lot of adjustments to his car from the cockpit all night long. Before that last round of pit stops, he said his left rear was starting to slide and that he was free into 3. And then he said to crew chief Paul Wolf, I really don't know what to ask for except for everything. Well, the adjustments they made down pit road seem to be paying off, Mike.
Kelly, the 20 car was one of several that took just 1 can of fuel on that last pit stop. Subsequently, Matt Kenseth has been soft pedaling the car, conserving fuel. He did just radio in to his team, though, saying, I can go harder if you want. But Ratcliffe said, keep it at the speed you're going right now. Rick?
And is that fuel or maybe a little tire conservation?
Well, Rick, the concern is when the leaders were last on pit road at lap 196, they needed, upwards of 8 to 10 seconds of fuel, yet we saw all the leaders leave after 6.5 seconds. So I don't feel like any of the front cars are full on fuel, and none of those have the distance. So Jason Ratcliffe knows that, hey, we can't make it to the end. If we don't get a caution, we're going to have to pin under green. So save a little fuel. We'll try to run as long as possible.
After the penalty, Martin Truex Jr. has worked his way back up to 13th, Marty.
From 22nd to 13th for Martin Truex Jr. And he said it's a different world back here. The car is awfully tight, but he is gaining ground every lap on the cars in front of him. You see him tracking down Austin Dillon right now. I just checked in with Cole Byrne. I said, because you topped off all the way, if you save a little bit, can you make it? He said, we're close. We're about a lap short. So maybe that penalty might work out for Martin Truex Jr. at the end of the day after all. And remember, when they did come down and top off, they took on left side tires as well. So they have 4 fresh tires and the most fuel of anybody in the field.
Steve, that penalty will spark conversation next week because we see on pit road, we see drivers accelerate when they get to that speed line and try to get to their pit box as quickly as they can. And from time to time, we see drivers get a little bit ahead of the leader or a little bit ahead of the car in front of them without a call. In this case, he got so far ahead, I think NASCAR felt like they had to do it. But it's going to spark conversation, and there'll be, I don't know if the word debate is correct, but there's a lot of discussion about it.
And there's always something every year or every few weeks. Last year it was restarts. The drivers had to learn how to place it with the zone to the way NASCAR wanted it. This rule has always been in place, like you said, Jeff. But it's one thing to make a little bit of an advantage, but to cross the plane of the car in front of you, technically you're in violation of the rule. So NASCAR has been looking at this. They decided to make the call, but I agree. There's going to be a lot of questions next week in the drivers' meeting.
Big bobble by Kyle Larson there as Greg Biffle got up to his back bumper, and Larson shot up the racetrack. And in doing so, has allowed the 16 and now the 78 of Martin Truex Jr. to get by.
See, the 78, he wiggled to get in the corner as well, had to chase it up the racetrack. This just isn't easy. I mean, when you're trying to go as fast as you can, your car is right on the limit. If you drive it in 10 feet too deep, it's way too far, and now you have to chase the car off the racetrack.
And if they were a few feet from the limit earlier in the race, now there are a few inches and sometimes crossing over it.
Larson going the wrong way. He got up the racetrack, got loose, and got up the racetrack again.
Very aggressive now as there are just 52 laps to go. The battle for 10th being won by Paul Menard. Larson falling back another spot. Brad Keselowski has almost a 3-second lead now over Matt Kenseth. And after seeing Brad Keselowski on pit road on lap 196, and Steve, you mentioned the fuel could become an issue. He's pushing it awful hard. Kelly.
Someone else pushing awfully hard, Ryan Newman. Remember, he got into the chase the last 2 years based on points alone. Well, now as crew chief says, we're kind of in a predicament of needing to balance consistency and staying in the points for a shot at the chase and taking risks to go for the win. He said Ryan, through thick and thin and the roller coaster ride they've had this year, just stays ice. Really doesn't change him or affect him at all, Marty.
Eric Almirola took those 4 tires earlier when no one else did in the car. Absolutely came to life. So terrific call by Trent Owens. Here they are in a position to get maybe one of their best finishes of the year in 17th. They finished 15th at Daytona last week. That was their best finish since Phoenix earlier this year. For Greg Biffle behind him, they also need a good win, or a win tonight. A good run would be nice as well. A lot of the cars on the racetrack, though, are saying that Biffle seems to be dropping oil on the racetrack. He's had no complaint about the chassis, though. They took 4 tires on the last stop, Kelly.
Paul Menard has not had the season that he's wanted, but they do feel like they've run better than they've shown. They've had some bad luck, motor problem, tire failure, brake issues, 4 DNFs this year. Paul Menard has not finished in the top 10 on a 1.5-mile track since 2014, but is poised to do it tonight.
Kelly Kyle Larson has fallen out of the top 10. He's back in the 11th position right now. He just radioed to his team and said, guys, I just got loose all of a sudden. I don't know what's going on, but I'm barely hanging on to this race car. You see him about a groove and a half up there. Everybody else on that white line.
I think the car we've got to focus on has to be the 78 of Martin Truex Jr. Very, very aggressive as he has moved up to the 8th spot already and closing in on Eric Almirola. So we keep taking a look at Austin Dillon trying to get by Kyle Larson. There's the 78. He has already got by Eric Almirola now, and so he goes up to the 7th spot.
And he's running laps 4 5/10 of a second faster than the cars in front of him. A half a second on a 1.5-mile racetrack. We never see speed like that, but look at the gain all the way up to the 8th position.
And this is for second. Matt Kenseth has it. Kevin Harvick has closed the gap now. Harvick following in the tire tracks of Matt Kenseth, a little bit harder into the turn than Kenseth. Closes that gap as they go through the center of the turn.
Look how low Kevin Harvick was on the yellow line. He was actually straddling the yellow line with his left side tires. Matt Kenseth doing the same thing.
Up the racetrack again he goes.
Yeah, Harvick got in behind him, and the air got off his car, and he had to chase it up the track. I don't know how many times I've said chase it up the track tonight, but it feels like 100.
Watch Harvick work, trying to get by Kenseth.
This track, to me, in this configuration, has much more of a short track feel. I don't even feel like we're at a 1.5 miles. I feel like we're at a slick short track.
In 3 and 4, and then it almost seems like an intermediate track in turns 1 and 2 because they're able to lean on that banking.
Much different feel between 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, without a doubt.
Yeah, the march to the front continues for the 78. By Ryan Newman now up to 6th.
Martin Truex Jr. after a penalty on pit road was up front. Had to go back down pit road and pass through penalty. They took advantage of it, filled it full of fuel, and now the most fuel and the freshest tires on the track are working for Martin Truex Jr. AJ Allmendinger has been checked and released from the infield care center. Brad Keselowski with a 3-second lead over Matt Kenseth. Even though Martin Truex Jr. is marching toward the front, he's still 6 seconds behind Brad Keselowski. That's something he's not going to be able to make up on the track unless there is a caution for a restart.
I'm not willing to say that, Rick. And he's running 3 4/10 of a second faster than the leader. Plus, he has more fuel. The 2 has to pit. If it stays green, the 78 can try to make it.
And the 19 of Carl Edwards just in front of Martin Truex Jr. This is what they had to say on the radio.
Can everybody make it to the end here? No. How short are we? We're going to make it.
We're going to make it. Well, let me tell you something. Here's the problem with that. You mentioned it, Steve. We have the fastest car on the racetrack in Truex. He stayed a little longer, filled it all the way with fuel. He's going to push the issue. He's going to make it where these guys can't ride, can't save fuel, and try to run them out of fuel.
Well, with 40 to go, I don't believe fuel is going to be an issue for the 19 because I think the 70 is just going to pass him on the racetrack.
Kelly.
With A.J. Allmendinger, who's just been released from the care center, but you were in there for quite some time. You come out with your left wrist wrapped. How are you doing?
Just trying to get some sympathy points now at this point. I figured there'd be more points in sympathy than I'm going to get on the racetrack, so I'm fine. Thumb hurts a little bit. We'll figure out. We'll go get an x-ray later and see what the exact diagnosis is, but I said I wasn't having a lot of fun before. I'm definitely not having a lot of fun right now, so guys try to get the car back together, and I don't know if it blew a tire or what. The hood came up. It was a big hit. I've taken a lot of big hits lately, and it's getting a little bit old.
Thanks, AJ.
We've been talking a little bit of strategy. Let's talk a little more as we're under 43 to go. Brought to you by Smithfield Foods.
Yeah, really the keys all race long. Rick event restarts, being efficient, somehow getting through turns 3 and 4. Pit efficiency, Jeff. When you come down pit road, be efficient, takes 2 tires, how much fuel, and then surviving this very tough racetrack.
That's been the hardest part, surviving this racetrack. It's been difficult for everybody. Marty?
And guys, I just checked in with Cole Pern. I said, how do you feel about the fuel situation now? Do you pull Martin Truex Jr. in a little bit? He said, no, just let him go because right now he's so fast, I think he can get his way to the front. Problem is, Steve, you know this, they're burning so much fuel, they haven't saved any during this run, and he needs him to save a little bit. Again, they'll be about 2 laps short if he doesn't save anything, so that's the dilemma. Do you hold your driver back, Steve, or do you let him go and try and get to the front on his own?
No, Marty, you let him go because if the 78 can't make it after topping off, then nobody can make it. There's no reason for them to save. I don't think they're racing against anyone on a fuel strategy.
And the caution may come out. If the caution comes out, you want to be in good a track position as you can possibly have.
Want to take our last green flag break as we go NASCAR nonstop. Welcome back. Just 32 laps to go in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series race presented by KFC. Under the lights at Kentucky Speedway. repay and reconfiguration. Giving us some great racing tonight. Next week, NASCAR is on NBCSN from Loudon, New Hampshire, Saturday. It will be the Xfinity Series coverage beginning at 3:30 Sunday. Sprint Cup Series racing coverage starts at 1 o'clock. 78 of Martin Truex Jr. continuing to reel in cars, and now he's got to the back bumper of Kevin Harvick.
And you see on the top of your screen, laps since last pit, Keselowski 40, Kenseth 40. The key is Martin Truex Jr. 38, 2 laps more fuel than the leaders because he had that penalty, came down pit road and serviced the car. I was confused. When you're servicing a penalty, if it's a pass-through penalty, you're not allowed to pit. But the penalty, the 78 was assessed, was tail of the field. That gave Cole Pearn the opportunity to come back in a second time. So that's the little details a crew chief has to understand. If that's a pass-through penalty, he can't top off for fuel. If it wasn't a pass-through penalty, wise thinking by Cole Pearn, come down, get some left side tires and fuel. But as you see the 78 working on Kevin Harvick, a great job coming through the field, but they're harder to pass as you get towards the front.
But again, we see the 4 of Kevin Harvick slide up the racetrack. That opens the door for the 78 of Martin Truex Jr.
78's got the spot now. He definitely is where he needs to be. Kevin has no choice but to lift off the throttle. The 78 coming up through the field, I don't think I've seen a car come up through the field like this in a long time. I mean, he came from way from the back. He has made a ton of time up. This is exceptionally impressive.
He was over 6 seconds behind the race leader, now inside of 5 seconds behind race leader Brad Keselowski.
You've seen cars start 30th, 35th, and go up through the pack, but where he started, he had to pass good cars. It's a lot different between passing cars and 30th. He's been passing quality cars to get here.
Fuel strategy being discussed by almost every team. Here's what the 4 had to say on their radio.
Everybody's short on fuel. We're about 3 short. You'd have to save about 26 laps letting off early just to save 2 laps, so it would be really hard to save 3.
So what he just said was to save 2 laps, it's going to take 26 laps. So if you wait to tell your driver with 27 to go, hey, you got to save us 2 laps, and he has to start saving right now. That was what Rodney was telling Kevin. So these teams are really smart at saving fuel. They know how much fuel they can save at what pace you can run, and that's what really matters. Kelly?
Well, I haven't really heard any discussion from the 2 team on saving fuel. I haven't heard them tell Brad to do it, but I just checked in with the team, and they're saying they think that they're just a little bit short, so he's going to need some help, Mike.
Well, the 20 team has had lots of conversations about saving fuel, and this is what the conversation was like just moments ago.
10-4. To save enough, I think you would lose a lot of spots to save enough. Just do what you can, but stay after it for now. I think I can manage it. I think there's about 20 to go, though.
And Jason Ratcliffe just told Matt Kenseth, right now, according to our calculations, you're better than the 2 car on fuel. Still, they're doubtful they can go the distance. Dave?
And Mike, I wonder if his teammate Kyle Busch might be managing it himself as well, but he wasn't instructed to do that. Here's what Adam Stevens said.
Everybody's short on fuel here, ma'am. No need to save anything. Give me all you got. We'll have to pit if we get a caution.
So they expect to be on pit road for fuel, but you know, sometimes guys, they can work off their own, and what Kyle sees, he can respond to. Maybe he's saving, Marty.
Dave, continuing the Joe Gibbs Racing theme, Carl Edwards is in the 6th position. He told Dave Rogers on the radio a moment ago, hey, I saved you a lap of fuel, and Dave said, I need at least 2 more, bud. I need you to be very aggressive in saving fuel. So a lot of these drivers backing it down as much as they can, hoping they can make it to the end.
At the point that the 19's at right now, I think that is the best strategy because the 78's already gone by. So the only way the 19 is going to win the race is if the 78 runs out of gas, assuming it goes green. So I think at this point, the 19, we've seen Carl Edwards stretch a fuel tank before. He's very good at it. But on a track like this, we've talked about how slippery it is, but it's also a lot of throttle. These mile-and-a-half tracks, it's hard to save fuel. It's not like a road course or a short track where you can lift earlier. It's hard to save these big mile-and-a-half tracks.
For probably the last 20 laps, the 78 of Martin Truex Jr. has been the fastest car on the track until that last lap. Austin Dillon was the fastest car, and Martin Truex Jr. wasn't even in the top 5. So now maybe Martin Truex Jr. is starting to think about a fuel issue, but he doesn't have that luxury. He's still 4 seconds behind Brad Keselowski. Matt Kenseth, 3.5 seconds behind Brad Keselowski. So now it becomes Not who's the fastest, but who's the smartest at conserving fuel as we get to just 22 laps to go.
I still think that Martin Truex Jr. and his team, they have that 2-lap cushion. We just heard it's going to take 26 laps of saving fuel to get 2 laps, right? We just heard that. Well, what does that mean for Martin Truex, right? That 2-lap thing is looming really large at the moment.
Any way you count it, 3 miles. They have 3 miles more gas than every other car out there.
So he can push the issue. He can force the issue. He can make everybody else run faster than they want and then save fuel later. That's the advantage. He can push harder, longer, save fuel later, and still try to get to the end. But again, when you're Martin Truex Jr. and his team, and you've won a race already, you run and get as many spots as you can and hope you get a caution, right? He's gained all these spots. He can win this race if the caution comes out or if it doesn't come out. So having a fast car and pushing the issue has put them in a position to possibly win the race.
And Jeff Colburn has not said one word on the radio about fuel in this run at all. He hasn't mentioned fuel at all, so he's letting Martin completely go, Steve, and that's a strategy as well from the crew chief side. You don't even bring fuel into the equation, you just want him focused on the front.
If the rare opportunity you have as a crew chief that takes a car that can drive from the back of the pack all the way to the front, as you see right here, mile per hour at the line, no surprise, Martin Truex Jr. is number 1. Almost a half a mile an hour faster than Matt Kenseth running the 20 down. If you have a car that can drive from the back to the front, I don't want to see conserving fuel go. Prove to the world how fast we can be. We've already won a race. Maybe let's make a statement, even if it isn't in victory lane.
I think decision time comes, though, if he can get by Matt Kenseth in a 20 car, and Keselowski is still 3 seconds ahead, and you only have 15 laps to go, can you make it? I mean, can you actually pass? Can you catch him? At that point, I think you do start saving fuel just enough to keep the 20 behind you in case the 2 car runs out of fuel. So, at 3 seconds with 15 laps, I don't think you're going to make that much up by outrunning a guy. You're going to have to hope he runs out of fuel. But when you get in the 20, in front of the 20, if you get in front of the 20, you can't let him back around you.
And it was Martin Truex Jr. who marched through the field until he got to the 20 of Matt Kenseth, and now he hasn't even been able to reel in Matt Kenseth. Kenseth continues to keep the gap between himself and Martin Truex Jr. as the 18 of Kyle Busch has decided to come to pit road with just 17 laps to go. Dave.
Rick, he could tell that it was out of fuel, bobbling, and he needed to come in and fill it soon, or it'd be very difficult to get it restarted if it ran out completely. The car is under power and still running. He'll get the fuel he needs to the end, taking right side tires at the same time.
Just needs a splash. He's got to go 16 laps. Kevin Harvick's going to do the same thing. Harvick on pit road as well. A lot of teams not thinking they're going to make it all the way. Decision come to pit road for the 14. Dave.
And we heard them talk about the fact that the amount of time they needed to save was going to be a big, big task. And you could hear the tone in Rodney Childers' voice. It just didn't sound real positive. So here he is, getting the fuel, 15 to go. Where will he cycle back out?
I like what these crew chiefs are thinking, Rick. They know they can't make it on fuel. So now the aggressive call is don't pit with 3 to go and take a splash of fuel. Pit now, hope the caution doesn't come out. Get brand new right side tires. You'll be the fastest car on the racetrack. Start gaining those positions back.
Where will they cycle back out onto the track? We saw Kyle Busch go by. He was on pit road just before the 4. Let's listen into what the 19 of Carl Edwards had to say and their team.
I have a 2.5 second cushion behind you. I think we're the best when it comes to fuel. Let's just stay forward.
Carl Edwards 9 seconds behind Brad Keselowski.
Steve said earlier, now, yes, 100%. If you're going to try to make it, go as slow as you can with keeping Austin Dillon, the car behind you, continuing to be behind you, but, slow way down. You're not going to catch Keselowski.
78 team hasn't been talking much on the radio until just moments ago. Calm as a cucumber. Marty.
Doing the best he can. Is that once he got behind Matt Kenseth, though, the car got extremely tight and it just won't go. And Kenseth is hugging that yellow line as best he can to take away the line for Martin Truex Jr. In fact, Truex said It's so tight, these tires are screaming right now. Struggling now that he's in third position, trying to get by Kenseth.
He did a great job to get up to third, but once he got up to third, he used a lot of his equipment up getting there.
Yeah, he did. He didn't restart third in a row there the whole time. He's come from the back of the field.
And another car on pit road, Austin Dillon, has chose to make his way onto pit road for fuel.
Dave. And Rick, after this run got started, I checked with Slugger Labby, and he held up two hands, 5 fingers apiece. They would be 10 laps short and knew they would have to come down pit road. When you're making horsepower, sometimes you use a whole lot of fuel, always.
Yeah, these cars don't get just barely over 4 miles to a gallon. So they're not out there for fuel efficiency, but right now a lot of them are thinking, I really wish this car was a little more fuel efficient.
A big difference between being 10 laps short and trying to make it all the way. I mean, think about this. That is a long way.
And the 78, who we thought was going to have better fuel mileage than everyone else, is now on pit road.
Well, Rick, that radio traffic you heard was Cole Pearn calling Martin Truex Jr. in. They're going to take the 2 tires and the fuel here. Again, like you said, we thought they did have 2 laps more than everybody else, but Cole Pearn taking the conservative route here and giving Truex tires and fuel to make it to the end.
If they can't make it on fuel, Marty, I like the idea of coming to pit road. I just think they're a little late. The 4s beat them to pit road. The 18 beat them to pit road. The 78 was going to pit. I feel they needed to pit 10 laps ago, but they did have the best car over this last run.
Brad Keselowski now only 1.7 seconds in front of Matt Kenseth. Can Brad Keselowski make it on fuel? 9 laps of racing to go. Kenseth has closed the gap. Carl Edwards has been in fuel conservation mode the longest. He is 10.7 seconds behind race leader Brad Keselowski, running third.
And Brad Keselowski's the leader, but if it is come down to guys that pit, or now we have the 42 on pit road.
Marty.
And that would be Kyle Larson coming in. This will be fuel only. No tires for Kyle Larson. Just the fuel to get to the end. And real quick on Carl Edwards, Dave Rogers told him, stay in max save fuel mode. They think the 2 and the 20 are running out. They think they're going to win this race.
2 and the 20 are going to stick with it. They are out on the track trying to win this race. Take a look at the 78 of Martin Truex Jr. closing the gap now on Kevin Harvick.
And we have dueling races, basically. It's a fuel mileage race with Brad Keselowski and Matt Kenseth, but if it doesn't end up a fuel mileage race, this is for the win between the 4 and the 78. If they can't make it on fuel, these 2 cars are the first 2 off pit road.
They're also the first 2 1 lap down. So Kevin Harvick, Martin Truex Jr., if the caution does come out, Kevin Harvick is in the free pass, and here comes Kenseth. Kenseth makes the pass on Keselowski. Harvick was in the free pass position, but it might not matter. Matt Kenseth out in front. Now will they save? Fuel save mode for the 2?
It has to be. He either has an issue or he's saving fuel, Kelly.
Yeah, there's been a great debate on the 2, whether they go into fuel savings mode, full fuel savings mode, I should say, or whether they come down. At one point, it sounded like they were going to come pit for some fresh tires and fuel. And then Brad said, or last minute they said, save, 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 save. Brad said on a scale of 1 to 10, how much? They said at 10, and he said, well, if I'm saving at 10, I've got to let Matt Kenseth by me. That's how this is going to play out. Now you see him coming down pit road, Mike.
Yeah, Matt Kenseth and Jason Ratcliffe had many conversations over the last several laps whether or not they could make it. Ratcliffe broke the news to Kenseth, we cannot make it. There's no way. You saw him come down pit road, fuel only, as he relinquished the lead. Rick?
Back on the lead lap now. It's the 4 and the 78. They have been able to get by Brad Keselowski, but they're a lap down. I mean, they're almost a full lap behind the 2.
It's very simple. 5 laps, 9 seconds. That's the advantage that Brad Keselowski has over Carl Edwards. He has to manage his fuel. You hear right there, save, save, save. But did they wait too long, Jeff? Can you save enough in the last 5 or 6 laps of the run?
Well, I think potentially you can because of what Edwards is doing. He is 9 seconds back. It doesn't matter. Unless they run out of fuel, it doesn't matter that Busch and Harvick and those guys just passed him. What really matters is the 8 seconds now that the 19 is behind Keselowski. Can you go slow enough without the 19 catching you to win this race?
And Jeff, remember the 19 team
behind you, saving gas.
There you go. That's all that matters. How far behind you is the car that you're trying to save more fuel in? That's all that matters.
And remember, the 19 team, though, has been in this mode for about 30 laps. So they've been saving for a long time. So they're still in that mode, though. They're in max save, fuel save mode. Dave Rogers just told Carl Edwards again, save fuel, don't worry about the 2. They're convinced he's going to run out.
And that's what everyone's gambling on right now, that the Brad Keselowski and the 2 cannot make it the remaining, it's going to be 2 laps when he comes back around by the finish line. Can he go 3 miles? 2 laps is all he's got to do. Brad Keselowski, 2 wins already at Kentucky. Can he make it 3?
Carl Edwards has cut the distance to 4 seconds now, so if he can cut that distance, it's going to make Brad have to run a little harder than he wants to.
Kelly.
I think he's out.
Brad just a moment ago said, I ran out. They're telling him to flip the switch to get him. It was fuel reserves, but Brad said, I'm going to try to make it, but I'm out.
Can Carl Edwards, though, go the distance as well? So as the 2 is slow on the track, he's wobbling, he's trying to get as much fuel as he can, coming to the white flag, one more time around, and here comes Carl Edwards. Does he have enough fuel? It's 1 lap to go, sponsored by Credit One. Brad Keselowski with fuel. He's got it fired up again. He's pulling away from the 19.
2 back. 2 back.
The battle for the win. Brad Keselowski, does he have enough fuel to get through 3 and 4 into the finish line? Carl Edwards right on his back bumper. Coming out of turn 4. He's going to have enough.
It's a repeat.
Brad Keselowski will win.
Checker flag. I ran out. Yeah, that was awesome. I got nothing in the tank.
Brad Keselowski. What an incredible start to the second half of the season. Wins at Daytona, comes back to Kentucky and wins again. This one, conserving enough fuel, and when I say conserving enough, just enough fuel. It ran out of gas. Carl Edwards was able to get to his back bumper. He was able to shake the car enough to get just enough in the pickup that it gave him enough gas to stay in front of Carl for 1 more lap. Brad Keselowski celebrating at Kentucky Speedway. This moment presented by Sunoco. Fueling victories all season long.
He got so slow off turn 2. I was convinced that he was done. He was out. And as soon as Carl got to him, he took back off.
The guys that came to pit road to fill up with fuel, Martin Truex Jr., Kevin Harvick, they finished 9th and 10th. Harvick in 9th, Martin Truex Jr. in 10th. Tony Stewart, a top 5 finish on his 600th start. What an incredible call by the crew chief of the 2, Dave.
Well, Paul Wolf, we were all convinced he was out of fuel, and it sounded like he was. He said he was, didn't he?
Yeah, he made me a little nervous there, too. I didn't know, I didn't think we were going to make it, honestly. We kind of made our bed there when those guys started pitting. I don't know, with 15 to go, they were gaining on us so much. We were at a point where they were going to jump us, so we needed to pick one strategy or the other. Got to a point where I felt like we were better mileage than most guys, and at that point we went into full save. And he had been saving throughout that whole run, because he knew we were short, so he got us a little there, and then when we were able to go full save, it was just enough. But it was worth the gamble. Hats off to all the guys at Roush Yates. Great power, and we had the mileage. We worked hard on the car all night. We weren't where we needed to be to start. At least we got it competitive at the end where we could use a little strategy and take the win.
How about the start of the second half of your season?
Well, it's been good. This is a part of the season where where we really tend to get strong and through the summer months leading to the chase. So great job by the driver saving fuel tonight too.
Great job by calculating, and I think they went back and forth a few times on whether or not he'd actually make it. In the end, Brad did.
What if the tow truck did donuts right now? Because Brad can. He's out of fuel.
What's so impressive about all these teams and drivers saving fuel, and Brad Keselowski and his team did it better than everybody else. There's no fuel gauge in the car. There's no fuel flow meter in the car. This is all based on the things that you've learned in practice, the things that you've learned with the experience that you have, and you have to guess your way through it. You have to take all that information and find a way to get that fuel mileage. It's very, very difficult to do, and he ran out of fuel right at the right time. That's amazing these drivers and teams can do that.
200-mile-an-hour chess game every weekend.
Yes. 400 miles, and he had to stretch every single mile for fuel. He'll be in victory lane if he gets pushed in there. We'll hear from him next. Welcome back to the Quaker State 400 presented by Advanced Auto Parts. It's not a full moon, but I'm telling you, crazy things have happened like it was a full moon at Kentucky this evening. I want to take a look at the results as the two of Brad Keselowski is being pushed into victory lane. Brad Keselowski, what an incredible job of saving just enough fuel.
Yeah, look at some of the names. Tony Stewart, Greg Biffle, Jamie Murray all come home in the top 10.
Dillon Hart Jr., 13th, Casey Kane, Denny Hamlin, Austin Dillon all finishing on the lead lap. A little bit further back, guys that were caught up in some incidents. Landon Castle, Casey Mears, Jimmy Johnson, Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott, not a good points night for that team, fighting to be in the top 16. Chase Elliott was the highest of the non-winners in the chase grid. As we look at after 18 races now, Elliott still on the top of that points list, just 63 points ahead of the cut line.
That's right. That point lead he has is shrinking. Ryan Newman with a third place finish tonight. He moved up a lot of spots.
And the two does get pushed into victory lane. Wow, until he's able to climb out of the car. He's done a lot of work in there tonight.
Yeah, all these drivers, they all had to work hard. We saw every team, every driver having to use a tremendous amount of strategy to win this race. The majority of the race, we saw the drivers sliding around, slipping. It was an incredible race. You just going into this race with all the unknowns, you just weren't thinking fuel mileage, but that's what it came down to.
And remember, there's no fuel gauge in these cars. So he didn't know that he was right on E. He was being told, you need to save fuel.
Yeah, we talked about the downforce and how it affected the braking. It also affects fuel mileage, Kelly.
It did, but Brad Keselowski now is the first driver of 2016 to put 4 victories in the books. He's won half of the Cup races here at Kentucky, 3 wins in just the 6 races that have been here. But perhaps no win was more dramatic than that one, Brad. Coming down to those closing moments, how did you manage to save the fuel while holding off Carl Edwards behind you?
We almost didn't, but man, I got to give it credit to my guys, Roush H. and Shop, everybody at Ford, getting the fuel mileage we did. We went out and we set a really fast pace there on that restart, and we're just, using fuel. And it became obvious that you're going to have to save fuel at the end. But I've already used so much, so a testament to our guys to have the fuel mileage we did, to be able to get back what I burnt early in the run and get the Miller Lite Ford in victory lane for number 4 this year. Gosh, that's great. Usually these repaves are kind of my Achilles heel, but to get a win here at Kentucky, I know it's been a good track for us in the past, but this ain't the same Kentucky, I can tell you that. Man, these cars were tough to drive today, but good tough, and this was a hard-fought battle, and really proud of everyone on the 2 crew to get win number 4, Kelly, and take that first place.
You said after the other 2 wins you would take those notes and put them in the shredder because of this repave. So what will your notes say leaving here tonight?
Save fuel.
4 wins now. You're just getting into this summer stretch. Is this a sign of things to come?
Yeah, this is our best stretch. And, really, really proud of that. We got to keep it going through the fall. Of course, that's really important, but man, this is great. I'm just so proud of my guys. I feel terrible for the fans. I didn't get to do a burnout. I didn't have no gas. The car wouldn't run, but we're back here in Victory Lane, and what a great Saturday night.
Yeah, when's the last time you had a tow truck push you to Victory Lane?
I don't know if I've ever had that. I don't want to have it ever again. I'd rather drive it in Victory Lane, but you take them any way you can get them, and we're glad to be here and glad to be doing things that are fun on a Saturday night. I know there's a lot going on in the country to be down about, but here we are. We're at a racetrack. We're having fun, and I just want to say thank you to all the fans that watch for us, Kelly, and care about our sport, and thinking about those who made some tremendous sacrifices over the last few weeks and months, and just glad to be here.
Congratulations, Brad.
Thank you, Kevin.
What an incredible win by Brad Keselowski. Only 4 pit stops the whole race. Now let's go to Krista, Kyle, and DJ.
This copyrighted telecast may not be reproduced, retransmitted, or used in any form without the authorized written consent of NASCAR Broadcasting. NASCAR would like to thank all of our fans for your support, and we hope you enjoyed today's broadcast.